Chapter 1661. He took out a drop of 5 elements spirit-cleansing dew and sucked it into his mouth. A cool feeling suddenly filled his mouth, and the power of the 5 elements also spread out. As Chu Mu swallowed the 5 elements spirit-cleansing dew, it dissolved in his body and spread out. The cool aura of the power of the 5 elements instantly filled Chu Mu's body, limbs, and bones. Chu Mu carefully felt that his saint body was being tempered and strengthened little by little under this cool aura. After a few breaths, the power of the drop of 5 elements spirit-cleansing dew was completely integrated into Chu Mu's saint body. His sacred body was still at the initial 3rd rank. It hadn't improved much. In fact, it could even be said that it hadn't improved much. However, Chu Mu was very happy. One had to know that his current sacred body had reached the initial 3rd rank. This was a level that the majority of low-stage sacred rank experts couldn't reach unless they were practitioners of the sacred body path. Even many mid-level martial saints did not possess a level 3 saint body. Usually, only those who had reached the high level of martial saints could possess a level 3 saint body or even higher. Although the 5 elements spirit-cleansing dew was a spiritual object with amazing effects, it was only a drop. For cultivators below the saint level, the effect was obvious. For saint experts, the effect was weak, especially for a 3rd level saint body. It was almost negligible and had no effect. The feeling at that time was just the feeling of the power being dissolved. The aura of the power of the 5 elements, in a way that promotes and restrains each other, circulates in the body, and has a tempering effect. The yuan power contained in it replenishes the consumption of the body's tempering, achieving the purpose of strengthening. Chu Mu secretly thought. His purpose was just to try and feel it. If he wanted to really temper and strengthen his early stage of the 3rd level saint body, he would need to take more 5 elements spirit-cleansing dew. However, that would require a relatively quiet and undisturbed environment to be able to temper and strengthen better. Chu Mu's soul was very strong, and coupled with the cultivation of the 5th level of swordsmanship, his perception also surpassed many people. Even if he did not have the talent of the Tian clan, he was not inferior to the 5 spirit clan. During this time, Chu Mu also encountered a small group of 5 spirits tribe members. However, neither side communicated with each other. The geniuses of the 5 spirit clans ignored Chu Mu. Naturally, Chu Mu didn't need to pay attention to them either. The Tian clan people had not found Chu Mu yet, because they did not know if the 4 Tian clan people had their auras isolated or if they had died. Although the latter was more likely, they did not know if the 4 Tian clan people had died under the claws of the spirit beasts of the divine mountain secret realm or at the hands of others. A figure flashed through Tian Daolin's mind. However, he was unable to confirm it. Whether it was him or not, he would know as long as he saw him. The people of Tian clan were not that easy to kill. But before that, there were more important things to do. From afar, Chu Mu saw a patch of gold that seemed to cover half the sky. That gold gave him a piercing and sharp feeling. That's... Soon after, Chu Mu became excited. If his guess was true, then this time there would be a great harvest. He immediately quickened his pace and moved forward quickly. Immediately, Chu Mu discovered that there were other people. They were the geniuses of the 5 spirit clans in the small group. The leader was one of the 3 geniuses who had mastered 4-5 elements power. There were a total of 8 of them, but they were one step slower and discovered Chu Mu. Human, there is an important place in front of our clan. It is not suitable for you to go. The geniuses of the 5 spirit clans stopped Chu Mu this time and said in an unquestionable tone, "Why didn't the elders of the 5 spirit royal clan tell me this before I entered?" Chu Mu asked. "I have already told you." The geniuses of the 5 spirit clans paused for a moment and then said coldly, "Although I don't want to fight with you, if you don't have a better reason." Chu Mu did not finish his words. After a pause, the geniuses of the 5 spirit clans understood what he meant. If there was no better reason, then they had to stop him. Human, giving you a place to enter the divine mountain mystery land is already a great gift to you. Don't push your luck. The geniuses of the 5 spirit clans looked ghastly. You can ask your elders about the truth after we leave here. Chu Mu said, Are you going to fight or not? If you are not going to fight, then don't block the way. If the 5 spirit races had truly given a spot to Chu Mu, then Chu Mu would indeed be indebted to them. Chu Mu naturally wouldn't start a conflict with the 5 spirit races' geniuses. Giving them some courtesy was something he ought to do. However, this spot wasn't given by the 5 spirit races. That's right. This place was equivalent to repaying Chu Mu's kindness of giving them the 5 spirit sword technique. In this case, Chu Mu deserved it. Moreover, before entering, the elders of the 5 spirit royal clan did not specifically say anything. The so-called important place of the 5 spirit clans was just an excuse that the geniuses of the 5 spirit clans were worried about competing with him for the treasure. If you want to go, then go. Just don't regret it. The genius of the 5 spirit clans who had mastered the power of the 5 elements said nonchalantly. This person's cultivation level had reached the middle stage of the 3-star saint rank. His own cultivation talent was extremely high. Moreover, he had grasped 4 types of 5 elemental powers. The 5 spirit species' inherited soul arts were exquisite and unique. His strength was extremely powerful. He didn't put Chu Mu, a human sword saint at the beginning stage of the 2-star saint rank, in his eyes. Therefore, in his opinion, a mere beginner 2-star martial saint of the human clan, even if he was a demon of the human clan, could at most contend with an ordinary beginner 4-star martial saint for a period of time. This was already heaven-defying. However, he could kill an ordinary peak 4-star martial saint. The two of them were not at the same level at all. They didn't associate Chu Mu with the legendary peerless genius of the human race. Even if they hadn't seen it with their own eyes and were confident in themselves, they wouldn't have believed it so easily. As soon as the leader spoke, the other geniuses of the 5 spirit clans glanced coldly at Chu Mu and turned to move forward quickly. Chu Mu did not mind. After all, this was the divine mountain secret land of the 5 spirit clans. Although his place was given to him by the geniuses of the 5 spirit clans, it was best not to fight. Of course, if the geniuses of the 5 spirit clans were not sensible enough and insisted on being enemies with him, he would not be soft-hearted. After being stopped by the geniuses of the 5 spirit clans, Chu Mu knew that there must be a spiritual object in front of him. Spiritual objects were also a kind of treasure. However, they were much more precious than ordinary treasures. When Chu Mu arrived, he was dumbfounded. Soon after, he became excited. In front of him, there was a sea of gold. It was formed by countless golden auras, covering a radius of several thousand meters. The golden aura emitted an incomparably pure fluctuation of the power of gold. Of course, the golden aura was not the true power of gold. It only contained a trace of the power of gold. For example, some extremely pure yang qi would also contain a trace of the power of pure yang, which showed the high end of the gold aura. In such a place, cultivating a gold attribute cultivation method or secret skill, or comprehending the power of gold, would be of great help. It would be more efficient and there would be no side effect. However, regardless of whether it was Chu Mu or the geniuses of the 5 spirit clans, they were not here for the gold aura. They were here for something else. In the thousands of meters of pure gold aura, there was a golden ray of light that was as thin as a strand of hair. The fluctuation emitted by the golden ray of light was extremely shocking. It was the fluctuation of the power of gold. Moreover, it was extremely pure, so pure that it was frightening. That's right. It is indeed the gold essence. Chu Mu took a deep breath and thought to himself. The gold essence was a general term. For example, the gold soul essence was a type of gold essence. In addition, there were other types. Among them, there were naturally some differences. Of course, there would not be too big of a difference between the same level. The golden ray of light that was as thin as a strand of hair was not the gold soul essence. The gold soul essence was in a solid state, similar to a stone. However, the gold soul essence did not possess any spirituality. The golden ray of light in front of him, however, emitted a trace of spirituality. Spirituality meant that it was a spiritual object. For example, the wood origin source in Chu Mu's heart was nurtured until now, but its spirituality was still inferior to the golden ray of light in front of him. In Chu Mu's mind, the ancient books that he had read in the past quickly flashed through his mind. After a few breaths, he knew what kind of treasure the golden ray of light with spirituality was. The acute gold spirit. With spirituality, it belonged to the category of essences. It was an extremely high-end type, even above the spirit essence. Whether it was in the future when he cultivated the Sword God's Descent secret technique Second Heaven or used it to enhance the sharpness of his sword, the acute gold spirit would be of great use. Therefore, Chu Mu made up his mind to obtain the acute gold spirit. However, he also realized that it would not be so easy. Firstly, the acute gold spirit had spirituality. Although it did not possess any consciousness or intelligence, its spirituality would allow it to make some judgment. Moreover, the acute gold spirit was not weak. Moreover, the 5-spirit tribe genius squad not far away was also targeting the acute gold spirit. There would be a fight. There were 8 of them. Among them, there were 3 3-star martial saints. The remaining 5 were all 2-star martial saints. Every one of them was a genius who could challenge those of a higher level. If they joined forces, they would most likely be able to fight against an ordinary 5-star martial saint. Even if they could fight against an ordinary 6-star martial saint, Chu Mu would not be concerned. This was because his sword could even kill an ordinary 6-star martial saint. The problem was that they were the 5-spirit tribe geniuses. This was the secret realm of the 5-spirit tribe. If they were to fight, there would be injuries and death. At that time, there would be even more trouble. Chu Mu was not a decisive person. He would do what needed to be done. It would naturally be better if he could resolve this smoothly. Contrary to Chu Mu's thoughts, the 5-spirit tribe geniuses did not take Chu Mu seriously. They were more confident in themselves. At that moment, other people arrived. The 8 5-spirit tribe geniuses' faces changed. Chapter 1662. The people who came were from the sky race. It was no wonder that the 8 geniuses from the 5-spirit races frowned. If it was any other 5-spirit race, they would be beaming with joy. The sky spirit region was dominated by the sky race. The 5-spirit races only lived on the edge of the sky spirit region. In some ways, the 5-spirit races were even vassals of the sky race. Of course, that was a long time ago. The current sky race didn't directly say it, and the 5-spirit races wouldn't admit it. In any case, it was a fact that the Tian clan was stronger than the 5-spirit clans. Otherwise, why would the Divine Mountain Secret Territory give up 30 spots to the Tian clan? Moreover, there was no reward. But it seemed that the Tian clan didn't give a single spot to the 5-spirit clans. The reason was because they were stronger than people. This sharp metal spirit was something that the elders of the sky race had instructed them to do their best to obtain. Presumably, the sky race was the same. The 5-spirit race's geniuses naturally weren't afraid of competing with the sky race geniuses. However, it was a bit more troublesome. After all, the sky race's geniuses were very strong. They weren't easy to deal with. For a time, the 8 5-spirit race's geniuses completely ignored Chu Mu. There were a total of 3 sky race people that came. Chu Mu naturally saw them, and the 3 sky race people also saw Chu Mu and the 8 5-spirit race's geniuses. But when they saw the sharp metal spirit, they all revealed excited expressions. When they saw the 5-spirit race's geniuses, their brows slightly furrowed. Then, they relaxed and didn't care. It was obvious that they didn't care too much about the 8 5-spirit race's geniuses. But when they saw Chu Mu, their expressions changed. A terrifying killing intent shot out from their eyes. It was like a sword that wanted to pierce through Chu Mu. "It's you!" a Sky Race person shouted. The Sky Race people had always been arrogant. They boasted of their noble bloodline. Therefore, it was rare for them to be angry. Of course, it wasn't that the Sky Race people didn't know how to be angry. It was just that when they were angry, they looked calmer. This was because they thought of themselves as high and mighty and regarded others as ants. Think about it, when facing ants, would you show your anger on your face? That was undoubtedly a way to lower your status. But at this time, the Sky Race's people's anger was displayed without any concealment. "Human, you actually dare to kill my Tian clan people." One of the 3 celestial races was Tian Daolin, who had fought with Chu Mu before. He was at the early stages of the 3-star saint realm. At this time, his eyes were blazing with killing intent, as if he wanted to burn Chu Mu into ashes. As soon as he spoke, the 8 geniuses of the 5 spirit clans understood the reason, but they were also extremely shocked. This human race sword saint, who was merely a 2-star saint, had actually killed a celestial race clansman. One had to know that the celestial race clansmen who had entered this place were all geniuses. They were above the majority of the 5 spirit race's geniuses. "Human, you've killed 4 of my race beings. I'll use your life to pay for it." Tian Daolin bellowed out as he deployed his heaven technique to attack Chu Mu. The 8 5 spirit clansmen were once again shocked. So it turned out that he didn't kill 1, but 4. Not to mention how strong this human race sword saint was, he dared to kill 4 geniuses of the celestial race. Just his guts alone were enough to cover the heavens. The moment Tian Daolin attacked, he used Wan Liuzong's heaven technique. Compared to when he was in the Boundary Monument Hall, his strength was many times stronger. Similarly, Chu Mu was not someone who could be compared to back then. The moment Tian Daolin used his heaven technique, the blazing brilliant spirit sword appeared in his hand. With a light flick of the sword tip, a crescent moon-like sword light instantly broke through the air and split into 2. It seemed to be attacking Tian Daolin, but it suddenly turned and attacked the other 2 celestial race clansmen. These 2 celestial race clansmen were both 2-star saint realm. From the looks of it, Chu Mu seemed to be planning to fight 1 against 3. The 8 5 spirit clansmen weren't fools. They immediately left the place and the crowd. They weren't willing to participate in such a battle. In their opinion, this human race sword saint who dared to attack the geniuses of the celestial race would definitely die an ugly death. Tian Daolin also knew that Wan Liuzong wouldn't be able to do anything to his opponent. This heaven technique was just to buy him some time. The heavenly god armor covered his entire body. First, it protected him. Then, he used a secret technique. Streams of energy revolved around his body. His aura rose steadily, surpassing the 3-star saint realm, reaching the early 4-star saint realm. This secret technique was extremely powerful. It actually allowed Tian Daolin's strength to rise by 1 star. Using a heaven technique at the early 4-star saint realm, its power was naturally even stronger. Heaven technique, a heavenly god armor. Under the exquisite heavenly god armor was a layer of heavenly god armor with powerful defensive power. This further ensured Tian Daolin's safety. He had personally experienced how sharp and powerful Chu Mu's sword was. At that time, Chu Mu was only at the Nirvana realm. Now, he was a 2-star saint realm expert. He couldn't be underestimated. Of the 30 celestial race clansmen that had entered the Divine Mountain secret realm, Tian Daolin was the most outstanding one. With him as the leader, the other 2 celestial race clansmen saw Tian Daolin being so cautious and going all out against this human race sword saint. At the same time, they were shocked. At the same time, they hurriedly used a secret technique to increase their strength. They then summoned the heavenly god armor to protect themselves. The 8 5 spirit clansmen in the distance were all stunned. The actions of the three celestial race geniuses were completely treating this human race sword saint as a powerful enemy. Heaven technique, chaotic blade flow. Heaven technique, a light explosion. Heaven technique, holy heavenly strike. In an instant, the three celestial race clansmen all used their heaven technique to attack Chu Mu. At this time, Chu Mu had already avoided Wanlu Zong and charged towards the three celestial race clansmen. However, he was faced with three tyrannical heaven technique attacks. The strength displayed by these three celestial race clansmen was many times stronger than the previous four. Of course, if the four celestial race clansmen had also summoned their heavenly god armor, their strength would have increased further. However, to Chu Mu, it didn't matter if they increased their strength or not. Their strength was just that. On the other hand, the three celestial race clansmen, especially Tian Dao Lin, after their strength had increased to the early stage of the four-star saint realm, equipped with the heavenly god armor and so on, their strength had become even more tyrannical. They could completely fight against an ordinary five-star saint realm expert or even kill him. However, in the end, although Tian Dao Lin's strength was still very strong, and when placed in the human race, it was still not enough for Chu Mu, let alone the other two celestial race clansmen who were even weaker. He only needed a sword in his hand. The chaotic blade stream was filled with countless blades, the light of the explosion exploded, and the light of the saint heavenly strike came crashing down from the sky. In an instant, Chu Mu was faced with three tyrannical heaven technique attacks. In the eyes of the 8-5 spirit clan geniuses, even if he didn't die, he would most likely be in a very sorry state. However, the next scene caused their eyes to widen. They saw that not only was the human race sword saint not injured by the three tyrannical heaven techniques, he was even able to handle them with ease. The sword light in his hand was incomparably sharp. With a slash, he directly shattered the saint heavenly strike that came crashing down from the sky. With another slash, an arc of sword light filled the surroundings, isolating the chaotic blade stream and the explosion of light. Under the emergence of the clouds, the three celestial race geniuses felt as if they had fallen into a swamp. Tian Dao Lin's pupils trembled as he immediately retreated. At the same time, he used a defensive heaven technique. He had personally experienced this move in the Boundary Steel Hall. At that time, its power was astonishing. Now, it would definitely be even more tyrannical. Tian Dao Lin retreated very quickly, but the other two celestial race geniuses didn't know how powerful this move was. They didn't retreat, but instead used their heaven techniques to attack Chu Mu. Under the clouds, a faintly discernible beam of sword light silently pierced through the clouds with extreme concentration, arriving in an instant. Even with the protection of the heavenly god armor and the heavenly god armament, which greatly increased his defensive power, it was still not enough to face the cloud-piercing sword style that could kill a 6-star saint. It was far from enough. Without any surprise, Chu Mu's cloud-piercing sword style pierced through the celestial race's forehead, piercing through his brain and shattering his Yuan soul. Brother! The other celestial race genius's teeth were about to crack. Tian Dao Lin's fury instantly exploded, his eyes turning red. A celestial race clansman had been killed right under their noses. It had to be known that it had been many years since a celestial race clansman had been killed by a human. Before this, 4 other celestial race clansmen had been killed by this person. Human, you deserve to die. Tian Dao Lin could only use angry words and a tone filled with killing intent to express his anger. The self-proclaimed noble celestial race clansman didn't have much to say when it came to cursing. Chu Mu didn't reply. The sword in his hand was merciless. It was another cloud-piercing sword style, but the 2 celestial race clansmen were already prepared. However, facing the extremely fast cloud-piercing sword style, with the absolute difference in strength, what could they do even if they were prepared? Without a doubt, the other celestial race clansman was also killed, following in his brother's footsteps. Only Tian Dao Lin was left. At this time, Tian Dao Lin's fury had already burned through his entire body. His eyes were scarlet red, but he hadn't completely lost his mind. He understood that although he was many times stronger than when he was in the ancient sacred city, this human sword saint was also many times stronger. Moreover, the extent of his enhancement was probably above his own. Back in the profound Yang Palace, this human was already able to contend against him. At that time, the other party's cultivation was only at the Nirvana realm. To a powerful saint, the Nirvana realm's cultivation, whether it was low, middle, or high, was actually the same. There wasn't much difference. However, at that time, the human was able to contend against him at the Nirvana realm. In the end, he even suppressed him, forcing him to use a secret treasure to escape. Otherwise, his life would be in danger. Now, the other party had already broken through the Nirvana realm and become a saint of the ancient sacred realm. His strength must have increased greatly. Although he didn't want to admit it, the strength he displayed now was definitely above his own. Chapter 1663. Heavenly Secret? God's Descent. Tian Dao Lin knew that he couldn't fight against Chu Mu, so he used his trump card. Heavenly Secret was a secret technique exclusive to the heavenly race. Even if other races knew how to cultivate it, they couldn't use it because they weren't from the heavenly race. The heavenly race claimed to be the descendants of the heavenly God and had the bloodline of the heavenly God. Therefore, the heavenly secret techniques of the heavenly race were often prefaced with the words Heavenly God. Originally, the heavenly God's descent heavenly secret technique was not something that Tian Dao Lin could use. However, this was a trump card. It was a trump card that the powerful heavenly race had used a unique method to insert into Tian Dao Lin's body. At the critical moment, it could be activated and further increased his strength. Tian Dao Lin, who had used a secret technique to raise his strength to the early stages of the 4-star saint level, had his strength soared again after using the God's Descent secret technique. In addition, his understanding of the various heavenly techniques that he had mastered seemed to have deepened. He could use them at his fingertips endlessly. In this state, his strength had increased tremendously. He could even fight and kill a 6-star saint. However, heavenly God's descent was ultimately not something one could cultivate. Instead, it was an external force and could not be sustained for long. Moreover, once the duration ended, there would be repercussions. Therefore, Heavenly Dao's descent had to kill Chu Mu while Heavenly God's descent was happening. He pointed with both hands and heavenly techniques were cast. Myriad Burial Flow, Chaotic Blade Flow, Giant Blade Strike, Sacred Sky Strike, Earthbound Spirit, Circulation Flow, 100 Streams Break, and other heavenly techniques were all displayed. They all blasted towards Chu Mu. The 8 5-spirit race geniuses were all stunned. Even if the 8 of them joined forces, they wouldn't be able to fight against such a Tian Dao Lin. That human race sword saint was dead for sure. However, what happened next shocked them even more. No matter how many heavenly race geniuses used their heavenly techniques, the human race sword saint waved the sword in his hand and broke the heavenly technique's attack. He also continuously counterattacked. Every single one of the powerful heavenly techniques could kill a normal 6-star saint rank. However, under Chu Mu's sword, they were all broken through one by one, unable to do anything to him. Rumor has it that in ancient times, powerful sword cultivators could use a single sword in their hands to break through all techniques. One of the 5 spirit race geniuses exclaimed. Indeed, within the 5 spirit clans, there were only a few records of ancient sword cultivators. One sword could break all technique. What they saw now was similar to the style of ancient sword cultivators. Tian Dao Lin knew that the God's Descent state could not be maintained for long, and he had to end the battle quickly. Hence, he used all his strength to continuously bombard Chu Mu with Tian Dao Lin's heavenly technique. The powerful and continuous heavenly techniques had indeed brought quite a bit of trouble to Chu Mu, but the power of the heavenly techniques was still lacking and could not threaten him. After fighting for a long time, Tian Dao Lin lost his calm and became anxious. How could this human be this strong? Heaven's Dao Lin was secretly astounded as he deployed a few more heaven arts consecutively. Under the state of heavenly God's descent, not only did his strength increase greatly, but his power was also endless. He could use heavenly techniques in an instant. In this state, he was truly like a heavenly god. The strength of the Tian clan could be seen from this. From this, it could also be seen how monstrous Chu Mu was. Without using any secret techniques, just relying on his own strength and the sword in his hand, he was able to withstand the endless attacks of Tian Dao Lin, a monster from the Tian clan, leaving Tian Dao Lin helpless. After trying a few times, Chu Mu discovered that he was still unable to enter the state of the sword of interception. Yes, he planned to use Tian Dao Lin to practice his sword. Unfortunately, under the state of God's descent, Tian Dao Lin was unable to bring him enough pressure. The duration of God's descent was about to end. Tian Dao Lin quivered and immediately understood that he could not do anything to this powerful human race sword saint. He could not continue fighting. He had to leave, gather the other clansmen, and join forces to kill him. With a thought, relying on the fact that God's descent was still there, Tian Dao Lin used the shadow-stealing heavenly technique. After dodging Chu Mu's sword, he quickly retreated, exploding with his fastest speed in an attempt to leave. Last time, in the Boundary Monument Hall, Tian Dao Lin had escaped from Chu Mu's sword once. This was the second time, but Chu Mu was already prepared. The moment Tian Dao Lin retreated, Chu Mu immediately used the heavenly scar-killing sword style. A white sword chi tore through the sky, locking onto Tian Dao Lin and slashing down. A strong sense of danger rose in Tian Dao Lin's heart. He hurriedly changed his position in an instant, but he discovered that he was still locked onto and could not dodge. Helpless, he could only use defensive heavenly technique. Under the heavenly scar-killing sword style, the defensive heavenly techniques were destroyed one after another. In the end, it slashed onto Tian Dao Lin's body, shattering the heavenly god armor, but was blocked by the heavenly god armor. Although the heavenly scar-killing sword style was powerful, it was constantly consuming energy to shatter the defensive heavenly technique. After shattering the heavenly god armor, it had consumed a lot of energy and was unable to destroy the heavenly god armor. If one sword was not enough, then two. If two still did not work, then three. Chu Mu continued to use the heavenly scar-killing sword style. White sword chi slashed down one after another. After Tian Dao Lin's heavenly god armor was destroyed, he immediately used the heavenly god armor again and used various defensive heavenly techniques. Streaks of heavenly skills were destroyed one after another. In the end, each streak of white sword chi slashed onto Tian Dao Lin's celestial god armor. Tian Dao Lin's celestial god armor had astonishing defensive power. It blocked the attack of Tian Dao Lin's celestial god armor, but under the impact of the power, it affected Tian Dao Lin's speed. Chu Mu approached rapidly. 5 Spirit Tribe, stop him! Tian Dao Lin roared. However, the 8 geniuses of the 5 spirit clans remained unmoved. What kind of joke was this? Asking them to intercept such a terrifying sword saint of the human clan? Wouldn't they be tired of living? In the blink of an eye, Chu Mu caught up with Tian Dao Lin. Cloud-piercing sword style, Dao-beheading sword style. He attacked from the front and back. Under the sharp edge and amazing power, Tian Dao Lin's defense collapsed again and again. The heavenly god armor was slashed again and again. Its power was constantly being consumed. In the end, it could not avoid Chu Mu's blazing brilliance spiritual sword and was broken. Once the heavenly god armor was broken, it could no longer defend properly and protect Tian Dao Lin. Shocking heat poured into Tian Dao Lin's body, making him feel as if his body was about to be ignited. Die! A low roar filled with killing intent entered Tian Dao Lin's ears. It made his soul tremble. His body trembled and his reaction slowed by a bit. This line was the line between life and death. Tian Daolin died. Once he died, the heavenly god armor on his body quickly disappeared. Chu Mu could not sense where it disappeared to, nor could he find it. Chu Mu also understood one point. The strength of the heavenly god armor on the sky race's body seemed to be closely related to their own strength. For example, the previous two, Chu Mu could break them with a single cloud-piercing sword style, but Tian Daolin had to use several swords. There were various reasons for this, but thinking about it, the strength of the heavenly god armor was related to one's strength. It was true. 3 sky race people had all died under Chu Mu's sword, scaring the 8-5 spirit tribe geniuses. Chu Mu quickly put away the spatial rings of the 3 sky race people and destroyed the corpses. However, he now knew one thing, and that was that after he killed the sky race people, there might be some kind of aura left on his body that would be sensed by the sky race people. After using the power of his soul to carefully search his body, he did not find anything. Presumably, the sky race people's methods were unfathomable and not something he could understand right now. Putting this matter aside, Chu Mu looked at the 8-5 spirit tribe geniuses and said, "This metal spirit, I want it. Your Excellency, the metal spirit is very useful to my tribe." The 5 spirit tribe genius who controlled 4 of the 5 elements frowned and said, "If Your Excellency gives up the metal spirit and leaves the Divine Mountain's secret realm, I will report it to the elders and give Your Excellency compensation." "The metal spirit is also very useful to me," Chu Mu said, not at all moved by the other's words. The 8-5 spirit tribe geniuses frowned, and their faces sank. If they were not afraid of Chu Mu's tyrannical strength, they would have already attacked. They thought about it again. This was the Divine Mountain's secret realm of the 5 spirit tribe. If this person killed them, there would be some aura left on his body. After leaving the Divine Mountain's secret realm, the elders of the tribe would definitely sense it. At that time, no matter how strong he would not be able to leave the 5 spirit mountain, even if the opponent was a peerless powerhouse. It was because they understood this that they had the confidence to challenge Chu Mu. "You have to understand that I am not negotiating with you. I am just informing you," Chu Mu said unhurriedly. "You, human, you are too arrogant. Alright, then let's see who can obtain this acute metal spirit." The 5 spirit tribe genius who controlled 4 of the 5 elements sneered and said, "The metal spirit is not that easy to deal with. Don't be greedy and lose your life." The reason why they dared to come here to collect the spirit of acute metal was that they had been informed by their predecessors and had made sufficient preparations. Although this human sword sage was powerful and they were no match for him, it did not mean that he could easily collect the spirit of acute metal just because he was more powerful than them. He thought that the human sword saint must not have known that there was a metal spirit here. It was just an accident that he had come here by luck. He was not like them, who had made sufficient preparations. Both sides were competing. The human sword saint was powerful, but he had not made any preparations. If they joined forces, their strength would not be inferior to the human sword saint. In addition, they had made sufficient preparations, so the probability of taking the metal spirit was higher. Under such circumstances, if the metal spirit was still taken by the human sword saint, they could only blame themselves for being too incompetent. Chu Mu naturally had no objection to the human sword saint's words. Everyone would rely on their own abilities. To be honest, he did not want to fight with the 5 spirit tribe, because once he fought, sometimes he had to kill. Once he killed any one of them, it would not do him any good. Chapter 1664. When Tian Daolin and the other 2 Tian clan people died, the other Tian clan people immediately sensed it. Combined with the previous situation, they were almost certain that the Tian clan people had been killed. However, they didn't know if the one who killed them was the spirit beasts here or someone else. Thousands of meters of golden aura filled the air. The sharp metal spirit that was as thin as a strand of hair swam within it like a spirit snake, shuttling back and forth. The sharp metal spirit was a type of the essence of heaven and earth. It contained an astonishingly tyrannical power of gold, and it also had its own spirituality. It was extremely shocking and difficult to collect. The 8 geniuses of the 5 spirit clans were clearly prepared. After they stood in their designated positions, they all took out treasures, which were pieces of paper. The paper was fiery red and emitted a dense flame fluctuation. The aura was scorching hot, and on the paper, there were countless lines that formed the outline of a burning flame. This was the preparation of the 5 spirit clan. Chu-Mu understood with a single glance. Among the 5 elements, the power of the 5 elements reinforced and restrained each other. Metal gave birth to water, and fire restrained metal. The idea of the 5 spirit clan was to use the power of fire to restrain the sharp metal spirit. This idea was actually not wrong. However, ordinary flames could not restrain the sharp metal spirit. Although it was said that fire restrained metal, it was still divided into levels. The sharp metal spirit was an extremely high-end metal essence. To truly restrain the sharp metal spirit, one would need the essence of fire. Perhaps the 5 spirit clan did indeed have the essence of fire, but it was impossible for them to bring it in. If they failed to obtain the sharp metal spirit, wouldn't they also lose the essence of fire? However, Chu-Mu could feel the aura of the power of fire from the 8 fiery red spirit talismans. It was only the aura of the power of fire, and not the true power of fire. To the sharp metal spirit, the power of such a spirit talisman was actually not enough. However, when the 8 of them worked together, they could still form a certain restraint on the sharp metal spirit. That's right, the 5 spirit clan didn't have the extravagant hope of completely suppressing the metal spirit. They only needed to form a certain degree of suppression and weaken the metal spirit's advantage and strength. The 8 geniuses of the 5 spirit clans raised the talismans in their hands, and they ignited without any wind. Immediately, they shot forward and shot toward the sharp metal spirit that was happily swimming around. In an instant, they turned into 8 balls of flames that burned fiercely and surrounded the sharp metal spirit in 8 directions. The range of the 8 balls of flames was very wide, so they did not affect the sharp metal spirit immediately. However, as the 8 balls of flames continued to shrink, the sharp metal spirit seemed to feel the aura of the flames. That kind of aura made it feel a little uncomfortable, and the speed at which it swam increased a little. The 8 balls of flames contained the aura of the power of fire, and when they joined together, they formed a circle. It was unique. As they complemented each other, the aura of the power of fire became even richer, causing the sharp metal spirit to feel a little afraid. Although its speed increased, the range of its activity continued to shrink. As the 8 balls of flames rotated, they rapidly shrank, as if they were going to trap the sharp metal spirit. Chu-Mu and the 8 geniuses of the 5 spirit clan all stared at it. The 8 geniuses of the 5 spirit clan smiled, while Chu-Mu's face was calm. How could the sharp metal spirit be so easily subdued? The sharp metal spirit had some spirituality, and it had not evolved into intelligence. However, it already knew how to avoid good luck. In a situation where it could not avoid, it naturally would not allow itself to be captured. Instead, it would resist. When the encirclement of the 8 flames shrank to a certain extent, the sharp metal spirit felt a strong threat. In an instant, the sharp metal spirit's power erupted. A golden light bloomed from its body, which was as thin as a hair. Its terrifying sharpness was instantly revealed, like a divine sword being unsheathed. At this moment, the sharp metal spirit's explosive state shocked Chu-Mu. Its sharpness was enough to instantly kill a 6-star martial saint. Even a 7-star martial saint expert would not dare to take its sharpness head-on. With a soft hum, the golden aura within a few thousand meters all fluctuated and gathered. The sharp metal spirit directly turned into a sharp small sword and slashed fiercely. The golden sword light slashed down, causing the 8 balls of flames to tremble. Immediately after, the golden light rushed forward and pierced through one of the balls of flames. after being pierced through, the ball of flames became unstable and collapsed. The other 7 balls of flames were also affected in an instant. They trembled and surrounded the ball of flames again. However, the original unity was broken, and the remaining 7 balls of flames could no longer cause much of an impact on the sharp metal spirit. Instead, under the attack of the sharp metal spirit, they all shattered and disappeared. Although this result was very disappointing, the geniuses of the 5-spirit clan had made other preparations. They did not expect to be able to subdue the sharp metal spirit in one go. The most talented genius of the 5-spirit clan took out a blue ball and threw it into the air. The blue ball was like a collection of water, and it emitted a stronger aura of the power of heaven and earth than the fire talismans. It was the aura of the power of water. In the 5 elements, metal gave birth to water. When the sharp metal spirit felt the aura of the power of water, it was immediately delighted. Its violent state was slightly relieved. The sharp metal spirit rushed towards the blue ball of water and instantly entered it. The blue ball of water expanded and enveloped the sharp metal spirit. Immediately after, the 8 geniuses of the 5-spirit clan formed hand seals and shot out rays of blue light into the ball of water. Outside the ball of water, blue ripples appeared and surrounded the ball of water. There were a total of 8 ripples like chains. "Come!" The 8 geniuses of the 5-spirit clan shouted in unison. With a pull, the blue ball of water that enveloped the sharp metal spirit was pulled down by them. The sharp metal spirit also realized that something was wrong. It immediately struggled and tried to break free from the ball of water. However, the ball of water was very soft and tough. For a moment, the sharp metal spirit was unable to break free. Chumu could not help but frown. Was the sharp metal spirit going to be subdued like this? Just as he was about to make a move, there was a sudden change. Thousands of meters of golden aura surged and all of it poured into the ball of water. The sharp metal spirit was instantly shocked. The golden aura was extremely powerful. The 8 geniuses of the 5-spirit clan were shocked. However, before they could react, the ball of water was broken. The sharp metal spirit instantly rushed out of the ball of water. The sharp metal spirit, which had some intelligence, had a strong sense of danger. However, it did not escape. Instead, it attacked the 8 geniuses of the 5-spirit clan. It instantly turned into a ray of golden light and was extremely sharp. Retreat! The 8 geniuses of the 5-spirit clan were shocked. They quickly retreated to distance themselves from the sharp metal spirit and launched a counterattack. The sharp metal spirit was indeed very powerful. However, it did not have any consciousness or intelligence. In addition, it had consumed a lot of energy to pierce the ball of water. Therefore, it could not kill the 8 geniuses of the 5-spirit clan in a short time. Chumu watched from the side and thought about how to best subdue the sharp metal spirit. Previously, the 2 actions of the geniuses of the 5-spirit clan had given him some inspiration. However, Chumu did not know if it would work. However, he had to wait. It would be best to let the sharp metal spirit and the geniuses of the 5-spirit clan injure each other. The geniuses of the 5-spirit clan were too confident in their own preparations. They had underestimated the power of the sharp metal spirit. The sharp metal spirit could not do anything to the geniuses of the 5-spirit clan. However, the geniuses of the 5-spirit clan could not do anything to the sharp metal spirit either. The 2 sides engaged in a protracted battle. The geniuses of the 5-spirit clan used all their means to weaken the sharp metal spirit. Chumu saw the opportunity and immediately mobilized the wood element origin in his heart. In an instant, it appeared above his head and emitted an extremely rich aura of the power of wood. The aura of the power of wood was very pure and rich. It immediately attracted the attention of the 8 geniuses of the 5-spirit clan. They were shocked. They had never thought that the human sword saint would have such a spiritual item. The sharp metal spirit was also attracted. Among the 5 elements, metal subdued wood. As a spiritual item, this was its nature. In an instant, the sharp metal spirit changed its direction and shot towards the wood element origin. Chu Mu exploded with speed and left with the wood element origin. The sharp metal spirit quickly chased after him. Chase! The geniuses of the five-spirit clan immediately shouted. The 8 geniuses of the five-spirit clan were not slow. However, Chu Mu was faster. The sharp metal spirit was also extremely fast. They quickly left them behind. Chu Mu put the wood element origin back into his heart. Immediately, his speed decreased. The sharp metal spirit rushed over and directly shot towards Chu Mu, trying to penetrate his heart. Chu Mu stretched out his right hand and grabbed the sharp metal spirit. However, the power contained in the sharp metal spirit was beyond his expectations. It instantly broke free from Chu Mu's hand and shot into Chu Mu's heart. As soon as the sharp metal spirit entered his body, Chu Mu immediately felt an extremely sharp energy piercing through his body. It was as if it wanted to pierce through his heart and head towards the wood element origin. The wood element origin could not be damaged. Chu Mu instantly unleashed his full strength, causing the sharp metal spirit to pause for a moment. Immediately, it was imprisoned. However, the sharp metal spirit was not willing to be imprisoned. It constantly resisted and struggled, trying to break free from Chu Mu's imprisonment. The 8 geniuses of the five-spirit clan were chasing after him. They were getting closer and closer. Chu Mu also felt that the sharp metal spirit in his heart could break free from his imprisonment at any time and endanger his heart and the wood element origin. His heart was fine. After attaining the divine body, the heart was no longer a so-called weakness. Even if it was pierced through, it could quickly heal and would not endanger his life. However, the wood element origin could not be damaged. Otherwise, it would be a waste of time to cultivate it. Who knew how long it would take to recover? Moreover, metal subdued wood. However, in the battle between the sharp metal spirit and the wood element origin, if the wood element origin was damaged, the sharp metal spirit would most likely not be intact. A lose-lose situation was not what Chu Mu wanted. He did not intend to subdue the sharp metal spirit either. Chapter 1665. Where is he? Where did he run off to? The 8 geniuses of the five-spirit clans quickly chased after Chu Mu, but they couldn't find any trace of Chu Mu. We can't lose the metal spirit. If possible, we should also get the wood essence, one of the 5 spirit clans said. Not only did they plan to subdue the metal spirit, but they also had their eyes on Chu Mu's wood essence. The 5 spirit clans were born with the power of the 5 elements and had a unique advantage in the 5 elements art. Compared to them, the human clan could not be compared with the 5 spirit clans at the same cultivation level and mastery of the same art. Of course, the 5 spirit clans were only proficient in the 5 elements arts, but the human clan could master many other arts. The metal spirit belonged to the metal element, and the wood essence belonged to the wood element. These 2 essences were very useful to the 5 spirit clans. They could be used to cultivate spirit arts or to cultivate some unique secret arts. They were also very helpful in comprehending the power of the 5 elements and could also increase the power of spirit art. All in all, there were many benefits and no side effect. Send a message to the other clans. Tell them to pay attention to that human clan. Once they find him, they should try their best to intercept him without conflict. They also knew that Chu Mu was very strong and wasn't someone they could provoke. Even if the 5 spirit clans joined forces to kill him, they would have to pay a great price. Therefore, they planned to make a deal first. If the deal didn't work out, they would make other plans. The human clan Sword Saint has the metal spirit and the wood essence. We must find him and make him hand over the metal spirit and the wood essence. Otherwise, we will kill him. He actually said not to make an enemy out of the human clan Sword Saint. How merciful! The 5 spirit clans geniuses who sent the message didn't tell the other 5 spirit clans that Chu Mu had killed a divine clan member by himself. This was a big matter and they didn't dare to spread it around, lest they implicate the 5 spirit clans. They only solemnly said not to make an enemy out of the human clan Sword Saint because he was very strong. There were still about 10 days before the Divine Mountain's secret realm closed. Chu Mu erased the aura he left behind and forged other auras. He spread them out in all directions to interfere with the geniuses of the 5 spirit clans. Chu Mu quickly went back to where he came from. The danger was relatively low. He found a relatively hidden place and laid down layers of restrictions. Then, he sat down cross-legged and focused on his heart. The sharp metal spirit was imprisoned in Chu Mu's heart by his power. It kept struggling, trying to break free from Chu Mu's power. Fortunately, the sharp metal spirit had used up some of its energy after the 2 outbursts, and it had also used up some of its energy in the battle with the 8 geniuses of the 5 spirit tribes. Without the support of the golden aura, it could not recover in time, so it was unable to break through Chu Mu's power confinement. Even so, Chu Mu could still feel the sharp aura pressing towards his heart. Although the heart was no longer a fatal weakness after attaining the saint body, it was still a very important part of the body. If it was pierced through, he would still be injured even if he did not die. Chu Mu, who was sitting cross-legged, planned to refine the sharp metal spirit. Only after refining it could he control the sharp metal spirit and resolve the crisis. With the power of the spiritual energy as the lead, he controlled the eternal sword intent and the divine wilderness sword essence and poured it all into the sharp metal spirit. The wood phase origin and the sharp metal spirit were both essences of the 5 elements. However, the 2 were different. The wood phase origin was full of vitality, but it did not have any offensive power. On the contrary, the sharp metal spirit was extremely sharp and full of offensive power. Therefore, the difficulty of refining the 2 was very different. Moreover, the sharp metal spirit was many times more mature and powerful than the wood phase origin. It already had a strong spirituality. If he wanted to refine it, the difficulty would be even higher. If he did not refine it, Chu Mu would have to divide a part of his power to imprison the sharp metal spirit. It was equivalent to burying a bomb in his heart that could explode at any time and endanger him. Chu Mu's power suppressed it and the sharp metal spirit immediately resisted. Other than such a strong method, Chu Mu did not have a better refining method, so he could only do this. The stronger the suppression, the more intense the resistance of the sharp metal spirit. Under the incomparably powerful attack, through the energy restriction, Chu Mu felt a sliver of pain in his heart, as if he was being pricked by a needle. I don't believe that I can't subdue and refine you. Chu Mu thought to himself, and he became ruthless. If it was the 5 spirit clans, there would be a better way to refine it. However, Chu Mu did not, so he could only do this. Fortunately, the sharp metal spirit's power had weakened a lot. Otherwise, this method would be almost impossible to succeed. Chu Mu's divine body had reached the early stage of level 3, which was quite powerful. His primordial spirit had reached the middle stage of level 4, which was also very powerful. The spiritual power below the middle stage of level 4 was naturally very tyrannical, comparable to a 7-star martial saint expert. The eternal sword will was also a very high-end and tyrannical existence among the sword wills. It could be said to be the top. Under the combination of various forces, the sharp metal spirit was suppressed. Under the resistance, the sharp metal spirit was gradually suppressed, and its resistance became weaker and weaker. Suddenly, the sharp metal spirit seemed to have a final radiance, and an extremely tyrannical power burst out. The golden light shone brightly, as if the potential in it had been stimulated in an instant. The tyrannical sharp metal spirit broke through Chu Mu's power imprisonment, and the golden light shot out and pierced through Chu Mu's heart. The moment his heart was pierced, Chu Mu felt an extreme pain spreading out from his heart. Although it was not fatal, that kind of pain was not something that many people were willing to experience. A mouthful of blood was spat out from Chu Mu's mouth. In a fit of anger, he increased his strength and surged towards the sharp metal spirit. At the same time, the wood phase origin also released a dense life force. It combined with the life force contained in Chu Mu's body and surged into the hole in his heart. It rapidly healed the wound in his heart and rapidly recovered. A numb feeling spread out from the wound in his heart, but it did not affect Chu Mu at all. That blow was indeed the sharp metal spirit's last resistance. It had accumulated its last bit of strength, and it was like the final radiance of the setting sun. After that, it was at the mercy of Chu Mu. The sharp metal spirit, which was suppressed, was weakened again because of the final radiance of the setting sun. It was no longer able to resist Chu Mu's power, and it was imprisoned and suppressed by Chu Mu. It began to be refined by Chu Mu. The refining process was difficult, but it was also not difficult. The key was that it required patience and time. After suppressing it, it was time to slowly subdue and refine it until the sharp metal spirit was completely subdued. The power of the spirit, the eternal sword intent and the divine wilderness sword origin attacked the sharp metal spirit again and again, causing the sharp metal spirit's last resistance to become weaker and weaker. It was gradually refined and integrated with Chu Mu's aura. Once the sharp metal spirit completely integrated with Chu Mu's aura, it would be completely refined and controlled by Chu Mu, and be used by Chu Mu. Time flew by under the grinding of water. The geniuses of the 5 spirit clans, in addition to completing their mission, were searching for Chu Mu. As for the remaining Sky Race clans, in addition to completing their mission, they were also trying their best to obtain treasures and so on. In addition, they also had to track down the murderer. Unfortunately, their range of action was limited because of the mission. Chu Mu had directly given up on continuing to search for treasures and returned to the place where he had just entered the Divine Mountain secret realm. It was safer. In addition, he had deliberately concealed himself and set up seals to isolate his aura, making it even harder to find him. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, time flew by. Chu Mu's heart, under his own life force and the life force of the wood phase origin, had already recovered and was beating vigorously. The sharp metal spirit was also gradually refined by Chu Mu. On the 10th day, the sharp metal spirit no longer had the slightest strength to resist because it had been completely refined by Chu Mu and was under Chu Mu's control. With a thought, the sharp metal spirit emitted a trace of sharp metal power. Under the guidance of Chu Mu, it spread to his right index finger. His index finger flickered with a faint golden luster, bringing with it a sharp intent. His finger poked to the side and easily pierced through a hard ore. Previously, Chu Mu's finger could indeed pierce through a hard ore, but it was definitely not as easy and without any resistance. This was the support of the sharp metal spirit. Now that he had refined the sharp metal spirit, the next step was to strengthen it. After all, a lot of the sharp metal spirit's energy had been consumed. Compared to before, it was more than 10 times weaker. Refining the sharp metal spirit had consumed a lot of Chu Mu's energy. After recovering, he got up and undid the seal around him. Chu Mu once again advanced, planning to use the remaining time to find other treasures and gain more. Erupting with all his speed, Chu Mu flew forward. Then, he encountered the Tian race people. There were 5 Tian race people in this small group. When they saw Chu Mu, they immediately revealed stunned expressions. Immediately after, they felt the remnant aura fluctuations that belonged to the Tian race people on Chu Mu's body, and their expressions changed greatly. Under the heaven technique, the 30 of them could sense each other's auras. Whoever was killed would be tainted with the killer's aura and be sensed by others. Chu Mu also understood this point. Thus, the instant he saw the 5 Tian race people, he instantly erupted with power. With his spirit sword in hand, he continuously used the killing sword style of Heaven Scar. 3 rays of white sword chi slashed down. Chu Mu's reaction was too fast, and his attack speed was even faster. It was completely out of the Tian race people's expectations. They didn't even have time to use any methods before they were killed by the white sword chi of the killing sword style of Heaven Scar. Of the 5 Tian race people, 3 had died in an instant. Only 2 remained. The 2 Tian race people were just about to react when they were stunned by what had just happened. However, they were still geniuses of the Tian race and had experienced hundreds of battles. They immediately reacted. However, while they were geniuses, Chu Mu was a monster. His reaction was even faster than theirs. At the same time that he used the killing sword style of Heaven's Scar 3 times, he had already erupted with shocking speed. He closed in on his opponent and used the cloud-piercing sword style and Dao-severing sword style. Chapter 1666. Outside the Divine Mountain Secret Region, on the main peak of the Divine Mountain of the 5 Spirit Tribes. It's about time for the Divine Mountain Secret Region to open. Yes, a month will pass in a flash. The next time it opens, we'll have to wait for another 1,000 years. 1,000 years was enough for an ordinary person to reproduce for dozens of generations. Even for a martial saint, it was a very long period of time, even though their lifespan could reach tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of years. The next time the Divine Mountain Secret Region opened, it might not be them who would be in charge, but a younger group. There was nothing to sigh about. It was not surprising that it happened every time. After all, 1,000 years was enough for a newly born and talented spirit tribesman to reach the eternal realm. I wonder how many spiritual treasures the younger generation will be able to obtain this time? An elder asked. Some of the spiritual treasures were from the last time the Divine Mountain Secret Region opened. The clansmen who entered did not have enough time or were not prepared enough to subdue and collect them. They would be able to subdue and collect them one by one this time. We're well prepared this time. We should be able to subdue and collect all kinds of spiritual treasures. We just don't know if the Sky Tribesmen will snatch them. An elder said worriedly. 30 geniuses of the Heavenly Clan had entered the Divine Mountain Secret Realm. It was equivalent to robbing the resources of the 5 spirit clans. Moreover, these geniuses of the Heavenly Clan were not only powerful, they were also not easy to deal with. If they accidentally killed any of them, it would be a disaster for the 5 spirit clans. The Sky Tribesmen were not comparable to the 5 spirit tribes. One should know that there were Saint Emperors in the Sky Tribesmen, but there were no Saint Emperors in the 5 spirit tribes. Since ancient times, there had never been a Saint Emperor in the Divine Mountain Secret Region. Therefore, to them, the Sky Tribesmen were like thorns in their throats, making them feel very uncomfortable. The Sky Tribesmen should have their own targets. They won't fight with us. I'm curious about the human sword saint. He entered the Divine Mountain Secret Region alone without much knowledge. I'm afraid his harvest will be very low. That's right. Speaking of which, it's more than enough to repay him for the 5 spirit sword technique. We don't have to worry about him taking away the spiritual treasures in the Divine Mountain Secret Region. The elders laughed and said. They had already discussed this before. The Divine Mountain Secret Realm belonged to the 5 spirit tribes. It covered a large area. After generations of exploration, the geniuses of the 5 spirit tribes had known most of the Divine Mountain Secret Realm, including the terrain, the dangers, and the treasures. On the contrary, Chu Mu was a human being. It was his first time to enter the Divine Mountain Secret Realm, so he knew nothing about it. He could only rely on his luck. Furthermore, whether it was the Tian clan or the 5 spirit clans, they all entered in group. That human clan was only one person, and he was even a 2-star saint. No matter how strong he was, it was already not bad for him to be able to survive under the claws of a middle-stage Holy Spirit beast. The treasures guarded by low-grade saint-level spirit beasts were not very valuable. To the 5 spirit clans, they were dispensable. It was easy to imagine how much the human clan's sword saint had gained after entering the Divine Mountain Secret Realm. As for the individual's fortuitous encounter, however much he can obtain will be considered his. All he needs to do is repay the favor. It has nothing to do with our 5 spirit clans. The second elder said lightly. His words were the final decision. The patriarch was in seclusion, and the great elder did not come out. The second elder had the greatest authority. As the elders chatted, the air around them began to ripple. It was as if a power that didn't belong to this place was emerging. They were all very familiar with this power. It was the power of the divine mountain's secret realm, and it was expelling the things that didn't belong to it. The repelling process would not harm anyone. Soon, figures appeared in the eyes of the elders. The 69 geniuses of the 5 spirit clans were all there, unharmed. However, there were 12 fewer Tian clan members. Only 18 of them had come out. Then, it was the human clan's sword saint. Suddenly, the 18 Tian clan members seemed to have sensed something. Their eyes all fell on Chu Mu. Immediately, they revealed shocking anger and killing intent. Without saying a word, the 18 Tian clan members immediately attacked. They displayed their heaven techniques and attacked Chu Mu. The sudden change startled the elders of the 5 spirit clans. They reacted quickly and blocked the heaven techniques of the Tian clan members. Although these Tian clan members were all geniuses, they were only low-level saints. As for the elders of the 5 spirit clans, their talent was not weak either. They were all high-level saints. It was clear who was stronger and who was weaker. Could it be that your 5 spirit clans want to protect the murderer of my Tian clan members and become enemies with my Tian clan? When the heaven technique was blocked, the Tian clan members glared at the elders of the 5 spirit clans. They were not afraid at all because the other party was a high-level saint. Instead, they were filled with killing intent and anger. As soon as these words were spoken, the elders of the 5 spirit clans immediately understood why the Tian clan members were glaring at them with killing intent. They had directly used their heaven technique. Thinking of this, the elders of the 5 spirit clans looked at Chu Mu in surprise. This human clan's sword saint was actually so bold. He dared to attack the Tian clan members. He was really audacious. He was not afraid of bringing a calamity to his faction. With a thought, the elders of the 5 spirit clans understood the reason and did not attack anymore. The favor of sending the 5 spirit sword manual had already been repaid with a spot in the divine mountain's secret realm. Chu Mu no longer had anything to do with their 5 spirit clans. Not to mention, he had offended the Tian clan and killed them. One had to know that the Tian clan members were famous for being protective. This human was dead for sure. As for their 5 spirit clans, it was not worth it to become enemies with the Tian clan for this human. However, the 5 spirit clans also had their own rules. My 5 spirit clans will not interfere in the grudges between your Tian clan and the human clan. However, this is the divine mountain of the 5 spirit clans. Settle your grudges outside. The second elder of the 5 spirit clans said directly. During this time, the geniuses of the 5 spirit clans did not even have a chance to interrupt. Human, you're dead for sure. The Tian clan members also understood the 5 spirit clans. Therefore, they did not continue to pester them. Instead, they quickly left. When they left, they viciously swept their eyes over Chu Mu. If that killing intent could kill, Chu Mu would already be riddled with holes. They did not really leave. Instead, they sent a message back to the Tian clan while waiting for Chu Mu to appear outside the divine mountain of the 5 spirit clans. The 5 spirit clans definitely did not dare to protect this human. Naturally, they did not dare to let him stay on the 5 spirit god mountain. Therefore, the human had to leave. It had to be said that the Tian clan's thoughts were not wrong. Their actions were not wrong either. On the 5 spirit god mountain, once they made a move, the 5 spirit clans would not sit idly by. Although the 5 spirit clans were vassals of the Tian clan a long time ago, now that the 5 spirit clans were independent, they were not willing to offend the Tian clan. Chu Mu was naturally very clear about the killing intent of the Tian clan. He had no intention of continuing to fight with the Tian clan, because in the end, this was the domain of the Tian clan. If he fought with the Tian clan here, he was confident that he could kill all 18 Tian clan geniuses. However, that would only delay his departure. If the Tian clan experts came, it would be a very troublesome matter for him. Of course, Chu Mu was also on guard against the 5 spirit clans. If the 5 spirit clans wanted to attack him, he would have to use the sword sect spirit seal. In the blink of an eye, Chu Mu took out the Extreme Peak flying ship. This flying ship was lent to Chu Mu by the Heavenly Sword Saint Master, one of the 5 Saint Masters of the human clan on the Blue Sea. Until now, Chu Mu had not returned it, because he had never returned to the Blue Sea. Chu Mu rarely used the Extreme Peak flying ship, because it consumed a lot of energy every time he used it. Now, with Chu Mu's financial resources and the crisis he was facing, he had no choice but to use the Extreme Peak flying ship. Taking out the Extreme Peak flying ship, he instantly entered the flying ship, activated it, and rose into the air. In an instant, it burst out at an astonishing speed and disappeared from everyone's sight. The Extreme Peak flying ship's speed was extremely fast. Under full display, it surpassed the speed of an ordinary 9-star saint. Naturally, it disappeared from everyone's sight in the blink of an eye. A flying ship with such speed was very rare and incomparably precious. The Tian clan and the 5 spirit clans never imagined that a 2-star sword saint of the human clan would have such a treasure. By the time they reacted, Chu Mu had already disappeared from their sight. After widening their eyes, the 18 Tian clan people quickly reacted. They took out the Tian clan's flying ship and immediately chased after him. At the same time, they sent a message back to their clan, asking them to send experts to chase after him. Elders, just now that human took away the metal spirit. He also has a kind of wood essence. Only now did the genius of the 5 spirit clans, who had mastered 4 kinds of 5 elements power, have a chance to speak. When the elders heard this, they were immediately stunned. This news was completely different from what they had expected. Why didn't you say so earlier? The 3rd elder said. He immediately knew that there was no reason for his words. In the situation at that time, the geniuses of the 5 spirit clans probably didn't have a chance to speak. Even if they wanted to say something, they would most likely ask them to wait a little longer and deal with the matter between the Tian clan and the human clan first. That human clan even killed 12 Tian clan people. Even Tian Daolin, who had used all his trump cards, died under the sword of that human clan sword saint. And that human clan sword saint seems to still have some strength left. The genius of the 5 spirit clans said again, shocking the elders to the point of confusion. Killing 12 Tian clan people, such a crazy thing, was actually done by a 2-star human clan sword saint. Moreover, they knew very well who Tian Daolin was. Using the ratio between the Tian clan and the 5 spirit clans, there were only 3 people in the younger generation who could grasp 4 types of 5 elements power. They were incomparably precious. The importance of Tian Daolin in the Tian clan was just like the 3 geniuses of the 5 spirit clans. Moreover, his strength was even stronger than the 3 geniuses of the 5 spirit clans. Whether it's the metal spirit or the wood essence, the human clan and the Tian clan are already in an irreconcilable situation. We cannot interfere, otherwise it will only cause great trouble. The 2nd elder said, however, pay attention to the news of the human clan and the Tian clan. If there is a favorable opportunity, try your best to obtain the metal spirit and the wood essence. Chapter 1667. The entire celestial spirit region was the territory of the Celestials. However, the true habitat of the Celestials was located at the center of the celestial spirit region. There was a huge city floating thousands of meters in the air, surrounded by countless white clouds. It looked like a paradise on earth. It was the celestial cloud city that belonged to the Celestials. Hundreds of thousands of Celestials, except for those who went out, lived in the celestial cloud city. It could be seen how huge the celestial cloud city was. It was rumored that the celestial cloud city was a treasure passed down from ancient times. It was a treasure that belonged to the Celestials. This was also one of the reasons why the Celestials called themselves the descendants of the Celestials. The Celestial Cloud City had an incomparably strong defensive power. When the seal was activated, even a Saint Emperor would not be able to break through the defenses of the Celestial Cloud City. Unfortunately, the Celestial Cloud City only had a strong defensive power and did not have a strong offensive power. Otherwise, the Celestials would be invincible in the deep blue world. In the Celestials, the elders with high authority were also high-ranking saints. As for the peerless powerhouses, unless there was a major event, they would not appear, let alone the Saint Emperors of the Celestials. The residence of the elders was located in the Cloud Tower, the tallest building in the Celestial Cloud City. At the top of the Cloud Tower was the residence of the Celestial Lord, and below it was the residence of the elders. The Celestials who left the Divine Mountain's secret realm sent a message. After some time, the elders of the Celestials in the Celestial Cloud City received the message. When they saw the content, their expressions changed drastically, and they were furious. In an instant, the Celestials felt a powerful aura with rage coming from the Cloud Tower. They were all surprised. The Celestials were arrogant and regarded themselves as noble. Therefore, they rarely got angry. Usually, every time they got angry, it would be a major event. But what kind of major event would make all the elders so angry? How dare the human kill 12 of our people? We will not let him off easily. Although this human is only a 2-star saint, he must be a demon of the human race to be able to kill Dowlin. He is not weak. So what if he's a human genius? He deserves to be killed. Order the celestial deity guards to hunt him down. The celestial divine guards were the guards of the celestial race. Every celestial divine guard had powerful combat ability and rich life and death experience. They were all existences that could fight across realms. The guards were named Celestial Divine Guards. Every Celestial Divine Guard wasn't weak. The weakest one was a 4-star saint. A 4-star saint-level Empyrean Guard could often fight against an ordinary 5-star saint-level human. It could be said that joining the Empyrean Guard was the dream of many Sky Races people. However, to become an Empyrean Guard, one had to be an elite among elite. Ordinary geniuses didn't have the qualifications and could only join the Sky Edge Guard, which was one level lower than the Empyrean Guard. Moreover, the cooperation between the Celestial Guards was incomparably tacit. They had a unique method of cooperation that could bring out their strength to the fullest. If a 4-star early-level saint-level Empyrean Guard could fight against an ordinary 5-star early-level saint-level human, then 2 4-star early-level saint-level Empyrean Guards working together could easily kill an ordinary 5-star early-level saint-level human. How many years had it been since the Empyrean Guards were mobilized? Now that they were mobilized once again, it made the Sky Race realize that something big was about to happen. The number of Empyrean Guards wasn't that many, only a few hundred people in total. Moreover, other than the Heavenly Master, if the Elders wanted to mobilize the Empyrean Guards, they needed 2/3 of the Elders' approval. More than 2/3 of the Elders' approval was indeed a big matter. Perhaps, to the human race, the death of a dozen geniuses wasn't a big deal. To the Sky Race, the death of a dozen geniuses was within the acceptable range. The main reason was that it had been many years since the Sky Race had seen 12 geniuses die at once. Not to mention 12, even the death of 1 or 2 geniuses was something that hadn't happened in a long time. You are all clear about the cause of this matter. This time, we must capture the human culprit and bring him back to Sky City for trial. A deputy commander of the Empyrean Guards swept his cold gaze over, his voice low and filled with killing intent. This deputy commander had the strength of a peak 7-star saint level. He would lead a team of Empyrean Guards to hunt down the culprit. A team of Empyrean Guards had a total of 120 people. Among them, there were 4 7-star saints, and the rest were mid-level saints. If this news were to spread out, it would definitely shock the other races. The Sky Race, in order to hunt down a human 2-star sword saint, actually mobilized a team of Empyrean guards. Although it was only the 5th team, the last of the 5 major teams, it was enough to show the importance the Sky Race placed on the human 2-star sword saint. After the Sky Race's Empyrean guards were mobilized, the 5 spirit races also received the news very quickly. On the 5-spirit God Mountain, the elders of the 5-spirit royal race were shocked when they heard the news. They actually mobilized the Empyrean guards. An elder's voice was hoarse. The 5 spirit races were naturally very clear about the prestige of the Empyrean guards. Every Empyrean guard was an elite among the elites of the Sky Race. They were powerful, ruthless, and had astonishing battle prowess. The Sky Race actually mobilized the Empyrean guards. It seems that the Sky Race is really angry this time. 12 geniuses were killed in a row, and one of them was Tian Daolin. Such a loss has never happened in the past 1,000 years. The Sky Race will naturally be furious. Let the clansmen who are waiting for an opportunity come back, lest they be killed by the Empyrean guards. There was no other way. Originally, they thought that the Sky Race would not mobilize the Empyrean guards to hunt down Chu Mu, so they sent a part of the 5 spirit races saint-level experts. They were prepared to see if they could get the metal spirit and the wood essence when the right opportunity came. But now, the Sky Race actually mobilized the Empyrean guards. The Empyrean guards were powerful and had a fierce reputation. Once they discovered the 5 spirit races clansmen, they would not be merciful. They were a group of madmen who liked to fight and were not afraid of becoming enemies with the 5 spirit race. Dying at the hands of the Empyrean guards was a great injustice. The elders of the 5 spirit royal family all felt that it was a pity. From the looks of it, the sharp metal spirit and the wood essence would fall into the hands of the Tian clan. If the 5 spirit clan wanted them, they would have to pay a huge price. A milky white flying ship quickly left Yunzhong City. The flying ship was a few hundred meters long. It was very round. Looking down from the top, it was oval-shaped, but the front and back of the ship were relatively sharp. It looked like a milky white leaf that was symmetrical on both sides. This flying ship was the flying ship of the Empyrean guards. Its speed was extremely fast, reaching the level of a 9-star saint. It quickly flew in the direction of the Wanshou Plain. If they wanted to hunt down Chu Mu, their speed could not be too slow. In the sky, a flowing light flashed past, quickly leaving the divine mountain territory of the 5 spirit race and flying in the direction of the Wanshou Plain. Chu Mu had 2 goals. First, to escape. It was not wise to make an enemy of the Sky Race in the Sky Spirit region. Second, to return to the ancient heaven region and find Gu Luankong and the other 2. The extreme peak's speed was shockingly fast. It could be said that in the current deep blue world, there was almost no flying ship that could be faster than the extreme peak. This was because what it represented was the pinnacle of flying ship manufacturing technology in the deep blue world. Of course, the flying speed of a peerless expert was much faster than the extreme peak. Not long after, Chu Mu entered the Wanshou Plain. As soon as he entered the Wanshou Plain, Chu Mu felt a little different. The feeling of the 5 elements aura fluctuation around him disappeared and was replaced by a chaotic aura fluctuation. Yes, in the Wanshou Plain, the Yuan Qi fluctuation of the heaven and earth was very chaotic. The closer to the center, the more chaotic it was. This was because the Wanshou Plain was home to countless spirit beasts. There were strong and weak spirit beasts. Their aura would unconsciously spread out and affect the surrounding air and the Yuan Qi of the heaven and earth, causing the Yuan Qi of the heaven and earth to become chaotic. The Wanshou Plain was a dangerous place. In addition to countless spirit beasts, there were also many natural hazards. For example, raging tornadoes, falling fire from the sky, and so on. The Wanshou Plain was very large, comparable to a large region. Therefore, it was not easy to pass through the Wanshou Plain. Even a 9-star saint would be wary of it. The extreme peak was too fast. Fortunately, Chu Mu's nascent spirit had reached the middle stage of the 4th level. However, he still had to concentrate to control it. After about 10,000 meters into the Wanshou Plain, the extreme peak began to encounter the natural hazards of the Wanshou Plain. A black hurricane with a diameter of several hundred meters came from not far away. It was like a huge black tornado that reached the sky. As it swayed, a terrifying force sucked in everything around it. The grass, trees, and stones were all sucked into the black hurricane and turned into dust. Some spirit beasts that could not escape in time were not spared either. They were sucked into the black hurricane and torn apart, disappearing without a trace. Looking at it, this black hurricane was in the path of the extreme peak. The extreme peak was extremely fast. Chumu had to dodge it as soon as possible. Under the full control of his powerful spiritual power, the extreme peak avoided the black hurricane. Otherwise, if it fell into it, even if it could escape, the extreme peak would consume a lot more energy in an instant. It might even be damaged. The extreme peak was not his. It was lent to him by the heavenly sword saint. It could not be damaged. After avoiding the black hurricane, the extreme peak continued to move forward. Soon, Chumu encountered flames from the sky again. Large pieces of flames fell from the sky and bombarded the ground. The ground below was constantly bombarded, forming a pit that was tens of thousands of meters deep. It was scorched black and filled with flames. The chaotic power of fire was rampant. After encountering so many natural hazards, Chumu had to reduce the speed of the extreme peak. Presumably, those celestials would not be able to catch up with him here. Suddenly, Chumu felt a strong sense of danger. A white light shot out from below, shooting towards the extreme peak. Chumu reacted quickly. He controlled the extreme peak to dodge in an instant. However, the protective shield of the extreme peak was still hit and shattered. The aftermath made the extreme peak tremble. Chapter 1668. I can deduce that the human is in the plane of beasts. He was a 6-star saint-level celestial guard. He had amazing intuition and had dabbled in the art of divination. He could roughly deduce the location of the target, who was related to the celestial race and whose cultivation did not exceed his. However, it was only a rough estimate and could not be precise. Enter the plane of beasts and find that human, the deputy commander of the 5th Squad said coldly. Inside the plane of beasts, not only were there countless spirit beasts, but there were also various natural hazards that could appear at any time and place. Therefore, the celestial guards did not dare to act recklessly inside. At this time, Chumu was already more than 100,000 meters deep into the plane of beasts. However, he was no longer riding on the extreme sharp flying ship. After several consecutive attacks, Chumu understood that flying in a flying ship would be a very conspicuous target and would attract the attacks of powerful saint-level spirit beasts. Moreover, it would also attract some flying saint-level spirit beasts. Not long ago, Chumu encountered a 9-star saint-level flying spirit beast and managed to get rid of it with great difficulty. The repeated encounters made Chumu understand that it was very difficult to fly through the plane of beasts, unless one had the speed or strength of a peerless master. In that case, he might as well put away the extreme sharp flying ship and land on the ground. He restrained his aura and moved forward, making him a smaller target. The 10,000 beast plains area was very wide, comparable to a large region. 100,000 meters was only a small portion of it. Chumu's advancing speed wasn't that fast, so passing through the 10,000 beast plain would probably take a lot of time. Rumbling sounds were constantly heard and the earth shook. Ahead, there were 2 saint-level spirit beasts fighting. In the plane of beasts, it was very common for spirit beasts to fight. Spirit beasts of different races, or even spirit beasts of the same race, would fight for various reasons, even to the point of life and death. At this time, there were 2 spirit beasts fighting. One of them was a 10-meter-tall ape with hair as black as steel needles and bulging muscles. Its arms, especially its forearms, were extremely thick and strong. Its fists were much larger than its head. In simple terms, its fists were the biggest and strongest part of its body. This kind of black ape spirit beast was called the colossal arm ape monkey. Both of its arms possessed incomparably terrifying strength, and the power of its fists was astonishing. A saint-level colossal arm ape monkey could easily shatter a mountain. The large-armed ape monkey's opponent was a spirit beast with the appearance of an earth dragon. Its entire body was covered with heavy armor, and it was called the heavy-armored earth dragon. The colossal armed ape monkey and the heavy-armored earth dragon were both three-star saints. Moreover, both of them were spiritual beasts that were famous for their physique. When they fought, it was a close combat that was very intense. The heavy-armored earth dragon's heavy armor had an astonishing defensive power, and it was good at charging. The colossal armed ape's fists bombarded with unparalleled power. Rumbling sounds continuously rang out, and the surrounding ground collapsed. This was a contest between physiques and physique. It was a collision between power and power. Chumu hid and watched. As he watched, Chumu suddenly came up with an idea. He lacked the cultivation method of the path of Saint Body. Now, he could take the 5 elements spirit cleansing dew to refine his body. According to his previous idea, he should find a quiet place to take the 5 elements spirit cleansing dew to slowly refine his saint body, strengthen his saint body, and upgrade its level. But now, seeing the confrontation between the two spirit beasts, Chumu felt that maybe this was a way to go. Using battle to nurture battle. Thinking back to before, in order to improve his swordsmanship, he traveled around and challenged swordsmen, sword masters, and so on. Through challenges, he sharpened himself in actual combat and improved his swordsmanship. He heard that some path of saint body cultivators, in addition to practicing cultivation methods, would also look for strong opponents to fight with. They would sharpen themselves and strengthen themselves through battle. 3 different cultivation methods flashed through his mind. There were similarities between the path of origin power and the path of primordial spirit cultivation. That was, it needed to be in a safe and quiet place to practice and improve. In addition to this, the path of Saint Body also needed to be in combat. Using combat to hone one's own strength, it could be better used. It could be said that the path of Saint Body cultivation paid more attention to actual combat than the path of origin power and the path of primordial spirit cultivation. Therefore, since there was no suitable path of Saint Body cultivation method, why not use this kind of combat method to hone his Saint Body and strengthen it? What's more, he had the 5 elements spirit cleansing dew. If he took the 5 elements spirit cleansing dew and used his saint body to fight, it should be better for his saint body to absorb the energy of the 5 elements spirit cleansing dew, so that his saint body could be better refined and strengthened. Thinking of this, Chumu decided to give it a try. Taking out a bottle of 5 caddies of 5 elements spirit cleansing dew, Chumu took a big gulp and swallowed it into his stomach. The power of the 5 elements spirit cleansing dew dissolved, turning into a cool and refreshing feeling that rushed into his limbs and bones, causing him to feel numb. Every part of his saint body was gradually being strengthened. To put it bluntly, the saint body was an energy-transformed body. Using powerful and pure energy, the body would be transformed into energy little by little until it was completely transformed into energy. A completely energy-transformed saint body was like an immortal body. The 5 elements spirit cleansing dew was a pure spiritual object, pure energy without the slightest impurity. Therefore, it was very suitable to be used to refine the saint body, further enhancing the saint body's energy transformation. In terms of elemental energy, a level 1 sacred body was equivalent to the elemental energy of a first heaven of the Aeon, a level 2 sacred body was equivalent to the elemental energy of a second heaven of the Aeon, and so on. A level 9 sacred body was equivalent to the elemental energy of a 9th heaven of the Aeon. Chumu's saint body was at the early stage of level 3. In theory, it was equivalent to the early stage of the 3rd heaven of the Aeons. However, the true path of saint body cultivators, in addition to tempering and strengthening the saint body, also had the corresponding martial skills to display the power of the saint body. Just like a sword cultivator's swordsmanship, one could fully display one's strength through swordsmanship. Although Chu Mu had been cultivating his physique, and even the saint body, his main fighting style was still mainly using the divine wilderness sword essence to display swordsmanship. However, it did not matter. Chu Mu's purpose was only to use the saint body's battle to hone his saint body and speed up the absorption of the 5 elements spirit cleansing dew. Once again, he opened his mouth and directly poured the entire bottle of 5 elemental spirit cleansing dew into his mouth. After quickly swallowing it down, Chu Mu felt an incomparably strong and clear stream explode from his stomach. It was like a roaring torrent of water that rushed through his limbs and bones. Chu Mu's blood began to boil as a powerful force filled his body. With a roar, Chu Mu instantly erupted with power and rushed towards the 2 spirit beasts that were fighting fiercely. He kept the divine wilderness sword essence in his dantian, not revealing the slightest bit. He also kept the power of his divine soul in his spiritual world. This time, he wanted to rely on the power of the saint body to fight against the spirit beast. To the 2 spirit beasts, Chu Mu was just a small dot. However, the aura that he emitted attracted their attention. The colossal arm ape, who was repelling the heavy armor earth dragon, threw a punch at Chu Mu. An incomparably strong wind pressure roared, like an invisible cannonball. Even if it was just a casual blow, it was enough to penetrate a 100-meter-tall mountain. Come on! The black fist shadow was many times larger than Chu Mu's entire body. Chu Mu's body seemed so small. Even so, Chu Mu was not afraid at all. He stretched out his hand, clenched his fist, and punched out. The power of the early level 3 saint body condensed on this fist. In an instant, it collided with the colossal arm ape's fist. With a bang, the space trembled. Terrifying white ripples spread out from the collision of the 2 fists. Circle after circle of ripples rolled out, breaking open the ground. Chu Mu felt an incomparably tyrannical power rushing into his body. In an instant, the bones in his arm and all the bones in his body trembled. There was a cracking sound. Chu Mu was sent flying by a huge force. He flew back like a cannonball. With a bang, he crashed heavily into the ground. Under normal circumstances, such a punch was enough to seriously injure Chu Mu's saint body. The colossal arm ape did not pay any more attention to it. However, in less than half a quarter of an hour, the little guy rushed out of the hole and rushed over again, bombarding with a punch. The power of this punch seemed to be more tyrannical. The clash of the fists just now had caused Chu Mu to be injured. The colossal arm ape was a 3-star saint, but its innate physique was incomparably tyrannical, completely surpassing that of the human race. Moreover, this colossal arm ape was not an ordinary 3-star saint. It had reached the advanced level of 3-star saint. Its bloodline was extraordinary, and its strength was astonishing. Fortunately, Chu Mu had a strong self-healing ability, and the vitality of the wood phase origin. Moreover, he had already taken a lot of 5 elements spirit cleansing dew. The power of the 5 elements spirit cleansing dew quickly spread out. While repairing Chu Mu's body, it also constantly strengthened his saint body. For this punch, Chu Mu used the earthquake force. His fist vibrated at a super high frequency that was invisible to the naked eye. The speed was extremely fast, and the punch directly hit the colossal arm ape's thigh. The power of such a punch was originally very difficult to cause any damage to the colossal arm ape. However, with the support of the earthquake force, the power of this punch increased several times. Under the bombardment, the colossal arm ape's body swayed. The heavy-armored earth dragon took the opportunity to launch a charge. In an instant, the colossal arm ape was sent flying, fell to the ground, and rolled a few times. Seizing the opportunity, the heavy-armored earth dragon charged again. Chu-Mu would not let the heavy-armored earth dragon kill the colossal arm ape, because he planned to train his physique and strengthen his saint body in this kind of chaotic battle. Therefore, he attacked with both hands and punched out. The power of each punch was very tyrannical. Even if it could not break the heavy-armored earth dragon's heavy armor and cause damage, it could still affect the heavy-armored earth dragon's charge, causing it to deviate slightly and buy time for the colossal arm ape to relax. The colossal arm ape stood up again and pounded its chest with both fists, making a loud sound like a war drum. Immediately, the colossal arm ape roared and rushed up again. It raised its fists and blasted towards the heavy-armored earth dragon like a cannon hammer. Chapter 1669. Somewhere in the myriad beasts plain, a 7 to 8 meters long and 4 to 5 meters tall heavy-armored earth dragon and a 10 meters tall colossal arm ape were fighting fiercely. If one looked carefully, they would find that a human less than 2 meters tall was also participating in the battle between the two. A three-way melee. The surrounding ground, because of the three-way melee, was shattered in many places. Cracks could be seen all over the place, and many places had collapsed into huge pits. All around, whether it was boulders or vegetation, they were all shattered. Every time he clashed head-on with the two spirit beasts, Chu-Mu's sacred body would be wounded. However, every time he was wounded, he would be quickly healed by his body's self-healing ability, the wood phase's life force, and the 5 elemental spirit cleansing dew. Moreover, he would be strengthened again and again. This kind of battle made Chu-Mu feel satisfied and very comfortable. This kind of fighting method was something he had never experienced before. Even in the previous violent battles, it was not as pure as it was now. Without using the power of the soul, without using the power of the soul, without using the divine wilderness sword origin, and only relying on the pure physique to fight, under the training, the earthquake energy became more and more skillful. Fight, fight, fight. The wisdom of the saint-level spirit beasts was not weak. After several battles, this human did not die. Instead, the more he fought, the stronger he became. This completely attracted the attention of the colossal arm ape and the heavy-armored earth dragon. When they fought, they would pay more attention to Chu-Mu, which greatly increased the pressure on Chu-Mu. At the beginning, this kind of pressure was difficult for Chu-Mu to bear. However, as his divine body continued to strengthen and reach the level of the middle third level, and the application of his physique was further improved, the earthquake energy became more and more tyrannical. Although this kind of pressure was great, he was able to withstand it. Chu-Mu did not know that the Sky Clan had sent the tyrannical divine guards into the myriad beasts plain to search for his whereabouts. He collided with the colossal arm ape's fist again. In this kind of battle, there was no need to dodge. Otherwise, it would not have the effect of tempering. After all, Chu-Mu's strength was still inferior to the colossal arm ape. After the collision, he was knocked away again. He only felt that his arm was sore and numb. His blood seemed to be scattered and couldn't circulate. His bones faintly emitted bursts of fragmented pain, but it was much better than the previous injuries. Chu-Mu didn't seem to notice. After landing, he stomped his feet on the ground, creating 2 deep trenches. After his body stopped, the wound on his arm quickly recovered. Chu-Mu once again took out a bottle of 5 elements spirit cleansing dew. After drinking the whole bottle, he rushed towards the large-armed ape and started the battle. The heavy-armored earth dragon had its own fighting style, which was mainly to charge and whip with its tail. The head of the heavy-armored earth dragon had the thickest armor, which faintly bulged out. Its charging strength was very tyrannical, and its tail was also very thick and solid. Once it whipped, its strength was very astonishing. Most of the cracks on the ground were caused by the heavy-armored earth dragon's tail. The colossal arm ape also had its own fighting style, which was to mobilize its own powerful strength with its pair of huge fists and bombard it with its fists. Chu Mu used his own physical strength and earthquake force to fight while carefully observing the two spirit beasts' way of exerting force and fighting style. He absorbed their advantages and integrated them, making his own exerting force more reasonable and gradually increasing his power. Although Chu Mu was a sword cultivator, when he was on Earth, before he became a swordsman, he also practiced fist techniques for a period of time. It was only a very basic fist technique. The purpose was to familiarize himself with his body, try to coordinate it as much as possible, and master a better way of exerting force. After that, he began to practice swordsmanship and swordsmanship. Swordsmen paid great attention to the coordination and control of their own strength. Therefore, Chu Mu had his own unique way of controlling his own strength. However, he had never used his fists to fight. This was the first time, so it was inevitable that he was a little unfamiliar with it. His strong control and learning ability allowed Chu Mu's empty-handed fighting ability to continuously improve. The application of his own strength in empty-handed fighting was also further strengthened. In addition to the beginning of the two-fist fight, Chu Mu also used his palms, fingers, and elbows. With the increase of application, Chu Mu's fighting style became more flexible, but he still mainly used brute force. The power of the elbow bombarded with earthquake force was attached to the elbow, increasing the power by several times. Under the elbow, Chu Mu followed up with a shoulder charge. It was like the heavy armored earth dragon's charge, directly hitting the colossal arm ape's leg. The powerful force made the colossal arm ape's body shake, and Chu Mu's offensive broke out. Compared to the colossal arm ape, Chu Mu's body was much smaller, and his strength was also much weaker, but he was more flexible. However, the colossal arm ape's skin was thick and thick. Just the layer of black hair on its body had amazing defensive power. No matter how Chu Mu attacked, it was difficult to cause any damage to it. As for the heavy armored earth dragon, it was needless to say. The colossal arm ape was famous for the strength of its arms, and the heavy armored earth dragon was famous for its heavy armor. Its defensive power was amazing. Even a 4-star saint's attack might not be able to break through its heavy armor. Whether it was the colossal arm ape or the heavy armored earth dragon, they belonged to the kind of spirit beasts with strong bloodlines in the spirit beast system. Not long after entering the Wansho Plain, the Sky Clan's divine guards put away the flying ship. They had a deeper understanding of the Wansho Plain than Chu Mu. Not long after, the 18 Sky Clan geniuses met up with the divine guards. The divine guards were often a little unreasonable, but they were more polite to the 18 geniuses because they were likely to become their companions. This is the human's appearance. One of the geniuses outlined Chu Mu's appearance. Very good. This way we can go one step further and calculate the human's location. The divine guard who was good at calculation said. His calculation method was closely related to the information. The more detailed the information, the higher the accuracy of the calculation. The divine guard immediately used Chu Mu's image to calculate, while the others waited on the side. About a quarter of an hour later, the divine guard finished his calculation. His face was slightly pale. The calculation consumed a lot of his soul power. The soul power of the Sky Clan was like the soul power of the human race. They had different names, but their essence was the same. That human is in that direction. The divine guard ignored his pale face and pointed in the direction of the Wansho Plain. He said with certainty, "Go back to your clan." The divine guard's deputy commander said to the 18 geniuses. Then, he swept his gaze over the divine guards and ordered, "Go." Although the 18 geniuses wanted to kill the human with their own hands, they also knew that the human would not be easy to kill. Moreover, with the divine guards present, it would not be their turn to act. The 120 divine guards moved together and rapidly moved in the direction of Chu Mu's location. The cold baleful chi emitted from their bodies was very shocking. The spirit beasts along the way did not dare to provoke them and avoided them. Of course, this was also because those spirit beasts were not strong enough. An even more tyrannical power gushed out from his body, making Chu Mu feel even more comfortable. This was the power of the late third-level saint body. It was much more powerful than the early third level. From early third level to mid-third level, and then to late third level, Chu Mu's power continued to increase. The toughness of his physique also increased. His explosive power, speed, reaction and other aspects also made great progress. With each battle, the earthquake energy became more and more perfect and powerful. Chu Mu put down his swordsmanship and other things. At this moment, he only focused on the refinement of his saint body and the application of power, as well as the research and perfection of the earthquake energy. Since he was promoted to Saint Realm Expert, the earthquake energy's help to Chu Mu was much less. So much so that Chu Mu did not use it in his subsequent battles. However, this did not mean that the earthquake energy was useless, but that its level could not keep up. As long as it was improved, it could still be of great help to Chu Mu. However, with so many things to cultivate, Chu Mu did not have the time to comprehend and study the higher level of the earthquake energy. Without the guidance of predecessors, he could only rely on his own imagination to comprehend, which was extremely difficult. It was almost like creating something out of nothing and would take a lot of time. Now, while refining his saint body, it was also a good opportunity to study the earthquake energy. As the fight continued, Chu Mu's empty-handed fighting style became more and more perfect. Fists, palms, and fingers changed. Elbows, shoulders, and so on. His entire body was like a moving mountain. As he leaned forward, he would explode with astonishing power. Soon after, his knees would hit and his flying kicks would follow, forming an uninterrupted chain of attacks. Every strike would use the earth-shaking force. The earth-shaking energy consumed physical strength. Normally, Chu Mu wouldn't use it like this, but right now, in order to absorb the 5 elemental spirit cleansing dew even faster, he didn't care about the consumption of his physical strength and continuously used it. This caused the destruction caused by his continuous attacks to be extremely shocking. Under Chu Mu's repeated attacks, the heavy-armored earth dragon's incomparably hard heavy armor actually showed traces of cracks. However, compared with the wounds caused by the colossal arm ape's fists, there was still a big gap, but it was slowly closing. After another collision and flying back, Chu Mu only felt numbness in his arm, but there was no pain because his bones were more tyrannical. He took out a bottle of 5 elements spirit cleansing dew and drank the whole bottle. It turned into a stream of clear flow that impacted his whole body, tempering his whole body, making his saint body stronger and stronger. After a fierce battle, until Chu Mu completely absorbed the power of the whole bottle of 5 elements spirit cleansing dew, he only felt his saint body tremble. Every time his whole body was tempered and strengthened, his strength was even more tyrannical, reaching the peak of the 3rd-level saint body. The peak of the 3rd-level saint body was equivalent to the peak of the 3rd sky of Aeon, and even more powerful. After continuing to fight and mastering the power of the peak of the 3rd-level saint body, Chu Mu once again took out the 5 elements spirit cleansing dew and drank it, further transforming and absorbing the power of the 5 elements spirit cleansing dew. After the peak of the 3rd-level saint body, there was a breakthrough, reaching the 4th-level saint body. Chapter 1670. With a loud bang, the ground collapsed. The chaotic battle between the 3 parties was still ongoing. The physical endurance of the spirit beast was amazing, far better than that of the human race. Chu Mu's physique was strong, but it was difficult to compare. This was determined by nature. Fortunately, he constantly took the 5 elements spirit cleansing dew, and his own vitality could also have a certain recovery effect, so that he could fight with the 2 spirit beasts for a long time. Chu Mu's fists bombarded the large-armed ape monkey's body. He couldn't help but take a step back, but he was hit by the heavy-armored earth dragon. The huge force directly impacted Chu Mu's body. The terrifying power was completely borne by Chu Mu's body, raging in his body. The bones in his body constantly made cracking sounds, and his muscles bulged as if they were about to be torn apart. His whole body flew out thousands of meters in an instant and then crashed into the ground. Chu Mu only felt that the bones in his body were about to fall apart. The full impact of the heavy-armored Earth Dragon's power was stronger than the punch of the large-armed ape monkey. Even if Chu Mu had reached the peak of the third-level saint body, he couldn't withstand it. In the cave, Chu Mu only felt weak. The energy of the 5 elements' spirit-cleansing dew was constantly transforming and merging into his body. While the vitality healed his body, it was also constantly strengthening his saint body. When the power of the 5 elements' spirit-cleansing dew was completely absorbed by Chu Mu's saint body, Chu Mu only felt that the bones in his body were all vibrating, as if they were growing again. A tyrannical power emerged from his body. The scorching heat of the pure yang, the sharpness of the spirit sword, the light of the stars, and the eternal suppression. The 4 tyrannical saint body powers were completely present in Chu Mu's body, constantly diffusing. Suddenly, under the vibration of his body, the power stabilized and surged in his body. 4th level saint body. Chu Mu clenched his fist, and a much more tyrannical power than before surged. After continuously consuming 100 bottles of 5 elements spirit-cleansing dew, a total of 5,000 kilograms of it, Chu Mu's saint body finally advanced from the early 3rd-level saint body to the early 4th-level saint body, which was equivalent to advancing from the 3rd level to the 4th level of the Aeon. Such an increase in strength was completed in a short period of time. If news of this were to spread, it would shock many people. However, such a method was difficult to replicate. It should be known that Chu Mu's saint body was not weak, and his mastery of his own power had reached a level that others could not reach. Moreover, he had a strong self-healing ability and vitality, and he was constantly consuming a large amount of 5 elements spirit-cleansing dew. In addition, there were 2 powerful spirit beasts fighting against each other. Under all these conditions, Chu Mu's saint body had made a major breakthrough in a short period of time. However, Chu Mu had just broken through to the sage body, and his strength had increased explosively. He had not fully grasped it yet, so he still needed to fight. With a loud bang, Chu Mu rushed out of the cave again, and turned into a streamer, carrying a terrifying power. He was like a meteorite falling from the sky, and blasted towards the heavy-armored Earth Dragon. He raised his fist and pulled it back like a bow. The moment his fist approached the heavy-armored Earth Dragon's neck, he blasted it out. With a roar, Chu Mu's fist hit the heavy-armored Earth Dragon's neck. The moment his fist hit the heavy-armored Earth Dragon's neck, the earth-shaking energy was activated, and the fist's high-frequency vibration directly bombarded the heavy-armored Earth Dragon's neck. The power of this punch was many times stronger than before. Even the heavy-armored Earth Dragon's tyrannical heavy armor could not escape. With a cracking sound, the heavy armor on the heavy-armored Earth Dragon's neck was smashed, leaving behind a fist print. Fine cracks, with Chu Mu's fist print as the center, quickly spread out, covering a radius of nearly 1 meter. The power of this punch was incomparably tyrannical. The heavy-armored Earth Dragon let out a mournful cry, and its whole body was bombarded to one side. After injuring the heavy-armored Earth Dragon with a punch, Chu Mu's offensive did not stop. Under the continuous attack, the heavy-armored Earth Dragon's heavy armor was smashed even more, and it heavily fell to one side. With a loud bang, the earth trembled. Immediately, the tip of his foot heavily trampled on the heavy-armored Earth Dragon's body, and his power erupted. His whole body rushed to the sky, and his 2 fists bombarded, colliding with the colossal arm ape's fist. In every previous collision, Chu Mu was at a disadvantage, but this time, it was different. Under the roar, Chu Mu's body stopped in midair, and his whole body trembled. That huge power was constantly impacting his body, but it was forcibly resisted by his saint body. The colossal ape's fist arm trembled, and its body also swayed. This punch was evenly matched. The colossal ape's fists had its own way of exerting power. That was, it instilled its own power into the thick forearms, and then blasted out along the fists, making it more powerful. Chu-Mu learned while also absorbing its way of exerting power, integrating it into his fists, and trying to integrate it with the earthquake energy as much as possible. The heavy-armored earth dragon had fallen, but it was not dead. It would take some time for it to get up and fight. The battlefield became Chu-Mu's and the colossal ape. Chu-Mu did not take the 5 elements spirit cleansing dew again. His saint body had a big breakthrough, and his power had increased greatly. He must adapt and fully master it. At the same time, he also needed to further stimulate his own saint body's power to keep up with the level of the saint body. Using the 5 elements spirit cleansing dew to temper the saint body, although it had its benefits without any side effects, it also had its limitations. If Chu-Mu's saint body was just an ordinary saint body, there would be no flaws at all advantages. However, Chu-Mu's saint body was not an ordinary saint body, but a powerful saint body with 4 kinds of saint body's power. The 5 elements spirit cleansing dew could not improve the 4 kinds of saint body's power. There were only 2 ways. The first way was to absorb the power closely related to the 4 kinds of saint body's power to temper and improve, such as absorbing the pure yang power of the pure yang crystal to improve, but the 4 kinds must be absorbed at the same time to improve, otherwise it would destroy the balance of the saint body's power, and then affect the saint body. The second way was to let nature take its course. As the saint body became stronger, it would stimulate the potential step by step and transform into the 4 kinds of saint body's power, so that the 4 kinds of saint body's power would continue to grow. On the other hand, if Chu-Mu's saint body was a 5 elements saint body, the 5 elements spirit cleansing dew could also play a huge role. After all, the 5 elements saint body needed the power of the 5 elements, and the 5 elements spirit cleansing dew contained the power of the 5 elements. Boom, 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 the battle between Chu-Mu and the colossal armed ape was extremely fierce. The colossal armed ape's favorite fighting method was the colossal armed ape's favorite. This human looked very small, but his strength was so strong that he could fight with it to this point. The colossal armed ape roared again, and its heart was filled with joy. Under the hearty battle, Chu-Mu gradually grasped the colossal armed ape's way of exerting power. So that's how it is. Under the Enlightenment, Chu-Mu began to combine the colossal armed ape's way of exerting power with his own earthquake energy. After several attempts, Chu-Mu successfully combined the 2 ways of exerting power. Chu-Mu named the colossal armed ape's way of exerting power as the colossal armed ape's way of exerting power. It meant to condense the power of the whole body into the arms, so that the power would be greatly enhanced, and it could last for a considerable period of time. Colossal armed ape! Chu-Mu shouted in a low voice, and the power of his whole body surged, pouring into his arms and reaching his forearms. A strange sound rang out, and Chu-Mu's forearms swelled in an instant, more than a circle bigger. The outline of the muscles was clear, and at a glance, it was clear that such forearms were full of tyrannical power. After constant observation and constant personal contact, Chu-Mu finally understood the colossal armed ape's way of exerting power, and named it the colossal armed ape's way of exerting power. Under his own display, he only felt that after his arms swelled, a tyrannical power filled them, and it was at least 30% stronger than his own strength. For example, his original limit of strength was 1 million jin. At this time, it increased by 30%, reaching 1,300,000 jin. This was only Chu-Mu's initial mastery of the colossal armed ape. If he deepened it further, it might be more powerful. Under the colossal armed ape, Chu-Mu punched again, and the earthquake force was exerted to the extreme. With a boom, this time, Chu-Mu did not move, but the colossal armed ape's arms trembled, and its body swayed. It took a few steps back as if it was drunk. The power of one punch was so powerful. The colossal armed ape's eyes were full of astonishment. It felt a sense of familiarity from Chu Mu's punch. After a few more punches, Chu Mu became more familiar with this combination of exerting power. The colossal armed ape kept retreating, and finally fell to the ground. This punch is called the Zhen Tian style. Chu Mu laughed. He felt that he seemed to have found a way to break through the earthquake force into the Zhen Tian force. Suddenly, Chu Mu felt a trace of palpitating feeling emerging from the depths of his heart. He knew that this was the feeling of impending danger, and it benefited from his powerful perception. Could it be someone from the Tian clan? Chu Mu thought for a moment and instantly eliminated all kinds of possibilities, and finally locked onto the Tian clan. Most likely, it was someone from the Tian clan who came to kill him. Chu Mu had a deep understanding of the heaven race's strength. They were blessed by the heavens. Their powerful heaven techniques could be easily used. If they were continuously used, their power would be extremely terrifying. Without the suppression of power, it would be very difficult to defeat a heaven race person. Let's go. With a thought, Chu Mu released the divine desolate sword essence in his body. It spread throughout his body, and under the eruption of power, he used his movement technique and quickly left. At the same time, he also used a small trick of his divine soul to erase the traces and aura he left behind along the way. However, he did not know that there was a person who was proficient in the art of divination among the Tian clan people who were chasing him. Although erasing his traces and aura would cause some obstruction to the other party could still calculate the direction he left in. The heavy armored earth dragon and the colossal armed ape also left one after another. Not long after, the Celestial Guard arrived. Seeing the destroyed ground, the Celestial Guard began to calculate again. Not long after that human left, he went in that direction. The Celestial Guard pointed to the left and said, Chapter 1671. All powerful spirit beasts had their own territories. The stronger the spiritual beast, the larger its territory. Under normal circumstances, powerful spiritual beast would not leave its own territory, and would only appear when a strong enemy invaded. Chu Mu's strength, compared to a powerful spiritual beast, was nothing at all. Therefore, when he passed by the territory of a powerful spiritual beast, he did not attract its attention. Of course, Chu Mu did not dare to be too ostentatious, in case he attracted attention and brought unnecessary trouble to himself. The sense of crisis had not been dispelled. It was like a maggot following him, letting Chu Mu know that the people of Tian clan had been chasing after him and had not lost their direction. The tracking technique of the Tian clan is really unique. Thinking to himself, Chu Mu continued to move forward while thinking. He did not want to be caught up by the Tian clan. Based on the current situation, it seemed that it would not be easy to get rid of the Tian clan's pursuit. Using a powerful spiritual beast? Chu Mu thought. Using a powerful spiritual beast to deal with the Tian clan was indeed feasible, but that also meant that he would be in danger. If he was not careful, he might endanger himself. However, from the looks of it, unless he used up the chance of the sword sex spirit seal, even if he equipped the heavenly puppet, he would not be able to guarantee that he would be able to contend against the Tian clan that was chasing after him. This was Chu Mu's feeling. As he moved forward, thoughts quickly spun in his mind, imagining all sorts of possibilities. In the end, Chu Mu made a decision to move forward and head towards the location of the spiritual beast in this territory. He hoped that it would be a spiritual beast that was strong enough to contend against the people of Tian clan. Chu Mu did his best to restrain his aura and continued to move forward. The closer he got, the more he could feel a powerful aura that was suppressing him. Based on this aura, Chu Mu could determine that this was a high-level spiritual beast, but he did not know if it was a 7-star, 8-star, or even a 9-star spiritual beast. After a period of time, Chu Mu finally determined that this was a 9-star spirit beast. However, this spirit beast was in a deep sleep. Chu Mu's arrival did not wake up the sleeping spirit beast. From its appearance, it was a snake-shaped spirit beast with a single horn. Its thick body was much thicker than the man's waist. It was at least 2 to 3 meters in diameter and over 100 meters in length. The horn on its forehead was curved, and its entire body was like white jade, flickering with a sparkling luster. Chu Mu, who had deliberately concealed his aura, was still too weak to attract the attention of this 9-star saint-level spirit beast even if he was close to it. Chu Mu followed behind the unicorn white python and continued to move forward. After about a distance, he stopped and waited. After a period of time, the 5th squad of the Tian clan's heavenly god guards also entered the territory of the horned white python. After calculating the direction Chu Mu was heading in, they quickly chased after him. Wait, this is the territory of a high-level saint-level spirit beast. The heavenly god guard who was calculating suddenly said. His expression changed slightly. There were countless spirit beasts in the plane of myriad beasts. Some of them were very powerful and were not easy to provoke. Even if they were from the Tian clan, under normal circumstances, they were not willing to provoke the powerful spirit beasts in the plane of myriad beasts. It would bring unnecessary trouble. High-level saint-level spirit beast. The deputy commander was startled, and then said coldly, "The intelligence of a high-level saint-level spirit beast is not inferior to an ordinary person. It should know that the people of our Tian clan are not easy to provoke." In the same way, the spirit beasts in the plane of myriad beasts were not easy to provoke. Then, the people of the Tian clan were also not easy to provoke. If that high-level saint-level spirit beast did not know what was good for it, it was courting death. Under the joint attack of 120 powerful Tian clan members and heavenly god guards, a 9-star saint was nothing. They would still be slaughtered. This human has some ideas. He wants to use this high-level saint-level spirit beast to stop us. The deputy commander of the heavenly god guard sneered, "Let's go. Whoever dares to stop us will be killed." After a while, the 120 heavenly god guards came to the place where the horned white python was sleeping. They did not restrain their aura fluctuations. When they gathered together, they were very powerful. It should be known that the deputy commander alone was at the peak of the 7-star saint level, but he could kill many ordinary 8-star saints. His aura was very tyrannical, enough to attract the attention of the horned white python. Not to mention, in addition to the deputy commander, there were several 7-star saint-level heavenly god guards and other mid-level saint-level heavenly god guards. The horned white python was suddenly awakened. The awakened horned white python exuded an incomparably powerful aura fluctuations. It let out a roar to warn the intruders. Yes, in its view, the group of people who were rapidly approaching were intruders. Under the powerful aura, the group of intruders was not scared away. Instead, they came faster. Under the horned white python's anger, the white jade-like horn on its forehead blossomed with white light. With a slight tremble, a milky white light shot out in an instant. Its speed was extremely fast, and its tip was as sharp as a knife. In this attack, the horned white python was completely merciless. This was because spirit beasts had always had a killing attitude towards intruders. The killing blow of a 9-star saint-level spirit beast was very tyrannical, but the heavenly god guards were prepared. They were not flustered at all. In an instant, they waved their hands and displayed one heaven technique after another. The heaven technique they used was one of the more basic heaven techniques of the celestial race, 100 Flows Burial. But the 100 Flows Burial used by the heavenly god guards, whether it was in terms of power or exquisiteness, surpassed the celestial race geniuses that Chu Mu had killed. Even Tian Daolin, the celestial race's monstrous genius, was somewhat lacking. After all, Tian Daolin's talent was very high. He was one of the celestial race's monstrous geniuses, but he was still too young. Compared to the heavenly god guards, he still lacked enough experience and enough life and death battles. More than 100 flows burial converged, forming a terrifying long river. It carried an astonishing destructive power as it rushed forward. The vice commander didn't even make a move. The 100 flows burial released by the heavenly god guards under him instantly collided with the white blade light shot out by the horned white python. It was hard to imagine that the 100 flows burial, which was formed by several 7-star saints and a group of mid-level saints, could actually contend against the killing blow of a 9-star saint-level spirit beast. It had to be known that when different levels of strength used the same attack, it was very difficult to synchronize and coordinate. But this group of heavenly god guards did it. They gathered more than 100 flows burial of different strength. In the distance, Chumu also saw this scene. He couldn't help but be shocked. This group of celestial race was indeed very strong. Just this cooperation alone was incomparable. It wasn't something that could be trained for 10 or 20 years. He also rejoiced that he wasn't so arrogant as to want to fight head-on with the horned white python. Instead, he chose this method. Otherwise, that kind of attack was definitely not something that the current him could withstand. Under the collision of the two energies, the surrounding space fluctuated endlessly. Both of them collapsed, and the aftermath shot out in all directions. Kill. The vice-commander of the heavenly god guards only coldly said one word. The horned white python was a 9-star saint-level spirit beast. Its intelligence was not inferior to a normal human's. Could also understand language. Therefore, when the vice-commander of the heavenly god guards said those words, it was immediately enraged. White light once again appeared on its horn. This time, the light was much stronger than before. The energy fluctuation was also much stronger. Although the previous attack was a killing blow, it didn't use its full strength. This time, it used its full strength in anger. Its power was several times stronger than the previous attack. However, the heavenly god guards of the celestial race were not the slightest bit afraid. Their expressions were ice-cold as they attacked again. This time, they also used the 100 flows burial. However, the vice-commander also attacked. The 100 flows burial led by the vice-commander completely gathered everyone's 100 flows burial into one. It was like a great river of water unceasingly rushing forward. Its power had increased by more than a level. The two collided again, and an even more powerful energy fluctuation erupted. It spread in all directions, shattering the ground. This attack was also unable to do anything to the horned white python. The heavenly god guards quickly spread out. They quickly formed a small formation and surrounded the horned white python. When Chumu saw this, he felt that something was wrong. This 9-star saint-level spirit beast probably wasn't a match for this group of celestials. He hurriedly retreated while restraining his aura. As he retreated, he also looked back to see how this group of celestials would kill the 9-star saint-level spirit beast. It was always good to know more about the other side's method. Perhaps he really would have to face them. The celestials all attacked, using their heavenly arts. However, the heavenly arts they used were not offensive heavenly arts. Instead, they formed a giant white net that fell from the sky. It was impossible to escape as it enveloped the horned white python. The horned white python seemed to know that it couldn't be trapped. It swung its tail, and it turned into a giant whip that seemed to want to shatter the sky. With a bang, the horned white python's tail struck the giant white net. However, the white net didn't break. With a slight tremble, it blocked the attack of the horned white python's tail. Then, it enveloped the horned white python and rapidly shrunk. Under the control of the vice-commander of the celestial guards, the giant white net firmly trapped the 9-star saint-level single-horned white python. The single-horned white python continued to struggle, but as the giant white net shrunk, its struggle became weaker and weaker. In the end, it was completely tied up and could not move at all. Die! The vice-commander's eyes were incomparably cold. He rubbed his hands together, and a white light appeared, transforming into a white light sword. He fiercely slashed down. The light sword contained shocking power and sharpness, stabbing into one of the horned white python's eyes. Its power exploded, crushing the horned white python's brain and shattering its soul. The heavenly god guards were a sharp sword of the Celestials. Any enemy of the Celestials would be mercilessly eradicated. They could be said to be the executioners of the Celestials. Their philosophy had always been to rather kill than live. This horned white python could be considered unlucky. It had been used by Chu Mu. In the end, as soon as it woke up, it was killed by the executioners of the Celestials. Chapter 1672. On the Wan Beast's plain, a silvery figure was running at full speed. His speed had reached the level of an 8-star saint. He was like a silver meteor flying across the Wan Beast's plain. Then, a huge white light broke through the air pressure and moved forward at an astonishing speed. The silver meteor in front was Chu Mu. He was riding the Desolation Heavenly Puppet. The Desolation Heavenly Puppet's power and speed were at the peak of 7-star saint level, but under Chu Mu's ingenious control, it had reached the level of 8-star saint level. The white light chasing behind him was the Celestial Clan's Heavenly Divine Guard. Logically speaking, the strength of the Heavenly Divine Guard was not the same. The higher one was at the peak of 7-star saint level, while the lower one was at the 4-star saint level. Their explosive speed was completely different, and the difference was huge. However, they cooperated with each other very well. Under the heavenly technique that increased their speed, no one was left behind, and they all maintained a very fast speed. They were not inferior to Chu Mu at all. The strength of this group of Celestial Clan was too strong. Chu Mu knew that he could not fight against them, unless he used the experts in the Sword Sect Spirit Seal. However, he could only use the Peerless Experts. He felt that it was too wasteful to use the Peerless Experts to deal with a group of Saint-level experts. Of course, at the last moment, he had to use the Saint Emperor level. The pursuit of the Heavenly Divine Guard brought great pressure to Chu Mu. Under this pressure, Chu Mu's blood flowed faster, and he seemed to be a little excited. However, his emotions did not fluctuate at all. He was in a calm state like an ice heart. In this state, his perception was raised to the extreme. Everything around him was presented clearly. He felt that in this state, he could enter the state of the Interception Sword at any time. However, the enemies were too many and too strong. The state of the Interception Sword could not deal with them. Once he stopped, they would immediately catch up and surround him. The Vice Commander of the Heavenly Divine Guard flicked his finger. Streaks of white light broke through the sky like meteors and shot towards Chu Mu. Chu Mu's figure moved left and right, dodging the streaks of white light. The Vice Commander of the Celestial Guards kept attacking, while Chu Mu kept dodging. With the Heavenly Puppets, Chu Mu's strength was about the same as the Vice Commander of the Celestial Guards. However, the distance between the two sides was shrinking little by little. According to this situation, Chu Mu was likely to be overtaken after a period of time. At that time, he would probably be surrounded by the Heavenly Divine Guards. While running, Chu Mu pulled out the Heavenly Puppet dual swords, bent his arms, and slashed twice behind him. The two swords turned into two streaks of white sword light that tore through the sky, instantly killing the skyward immortal guards. The Deputy Commander shattered the two white sword rays with a single strike. Immediately after, a dense expanse of white sword rays appeared in front of him. Numerous white sword rays attacked him like a violent storm. They were extremely powerful. Child's play. The Vice Commander of the Heavenly Divine Guards sneered. Using his heavenly technique, he shattered the sword chi. Although the white sword light did not cause any harm to them, it still slowed them down slightly, so that the distance between them would not be shortened. Chasing and fleeing unknowingly, they went deeper into the plane of beasts. The great disturbance caused by the fight between the two sides attracted the attention of many spirit beasts. Those low-level and mid-level Saint Spirit beasts were naturally afraid that they would not be able to avoid it and stayed far away. However, the high-level Saint Spirit beasts were surging forward. A sharp cry rang out in the sky. The flapping of the wings was like a storm. A large black mass quickly flew over from afar. It was a giant blackbird. As it flapped its wings, huge black cyclones were created, just like a storm. With the arrival of this giant black bird, the strong wind pressure surged violently, crashing and suppressing the entire area. This was a 9-star high-level Saint Spirit beast, the storm bird. The strength of the storm bird was not something that the single-horned white python could compare with. The strong pressure made Chu Mu's expression change, and the same was true for the heavenly divine guards. The storm bird obviously sensed the aura of Chu Mu and the heavenly divine guards. As soon as it discovered them, the storm bird once again let out a cheerful cry. As it flapped its wings, countless black cyclones fell rapidly, bombarding Chu Mu and the heavenly divine guards. Each black cyclone emitted an astonishing power. Chu Mu quickly dodged and brandished his sword light. He shattered one of the black cyclones and dodged 2 of them. Compared to Chu Mu, the heavenly divine guards were a bigger target. Dozens of black cyclones bombarded them, causing them a lot of trouble. At this time, a rumbling sound was heard. Dust billowed in the distance. Under the thick smoke, a single-horned giant rhinoceros with sharp teeth rushed over. Its teeth seemed to be telling Chu Mu and the others that it was not to be trifled with. This was another 9-star high-level Saint-level spirit beast. On the other side, a giant golden lion appeared, emitting the aura of a peak 9-star Saint-level spirit beast. In this situation, Chu Mu was not alarmed, but happy. Originally, it was very difficult to escape the pursuit of the heavenly divine guards. Now, with the addition of these powerful spirit beasts, he had more opportunities to escape. However, the new trouble was that these spirit beasts were very powerful. They would not let him escape so easily. Next, it was time to flee for his life. Immediately, Chu Mu discovered that he did not seem to be targeted. Or it could be said that these spirit beasts were more interested in the celestials than in him. After thinking for a bit, Chu Mu understood. After all, he looked like a lump of iron. The aura he emitted was the aura of a heavenly puppet. It was ice-cold, without any vitality. Moreover, he was still alone. The celestials were different. There were more than 100 celestials, and all of them were living people. To these carnivorous spirit beasts, they were a very delicious meal. The storm bird, the carnivorous rhinoceros, and the giant golden lion all rushed toward the heavenly divine guards, intending to divide them. If it was only one, it would not be difficult for this group of heavenly divine guards to deal with. The problem was that there were 3 of them. All of a sudden, it brought enough pressure to the heavenly divine guards. Moreover, these 3 high-level Saint-level spirit beasts were not weak. They knew that in this situation, it was not appropriate to have a conflict. They naturally recognized these people. They were from the Celestials. However, so what? The Celestials were very powerful. The Wan Beasts Plain was not a place to be trifled with. If the peerless experts of the Celestials dared to invade the Wan Beasts Plain, the Beast Kings of the Wan Beasts Plain would not sit idly by. The heavenly divine guards looked cold, their faces full of killing intent. In order to train qualified heavenly divine guards, they had experienced countless life and death battles. The number of spirit beasts that died in their hands was innumerable. Even if it was a 9-star saint-level spirit beast, they were not afraid at all. The 5th team of the Celestial Divine Guards is chasing the enemy of our clan. If you stop them, you will be the enemy of our clan. The deputy commander of the Heavenly Divine Guards said in a cold voice. They were not afraid of these 3 spirit beasts. The problem was that if they continued to fight, they would give the human a chance to escape. Although they could calculate the direction and general position of the other party, each calculation consumed the power of the soul. If they could not recover in time, they would not be able to calculate again. If they could not calculate, naturally they would not be able to catch up with the other party. Therefore, he could only use the name of the celestials and the heavenly divine guards. When the three spirit beasts heard this, they immediately hesitated. They were 9-star saint-level spirit beasts. In the Wan Beasts plane, they belonged to the top group. They had wisdom far above other spirit beasts. Moreover, they had lived for a long time and knew more things. They were very clear about the celestials and were not afraid of them. However, they were a little afraid of the heavenly divine guards' fierce reputation. The heavenly divine guards were the executioners of the celestials. They were famous far and wide. Each of the heavenly divine guards was very powerful and good at cooperation. Although there were no peerless powerhouses among them, it was not difficult for them to kill a 9-star saint level. As long as it was not a peerless powerhouse who entered the Wan Beast's plane, the Beast King would not care. The 3 9-star saint-level spirit beasts hesitated. The heavenly divine guards chased after Chu-Mu again. However, after a short period of time, Chu-Mu ran far away again. Worried about the fierce reputation of the heavenly divine guards, the 3 9-star saint-level spirit beasts looked at him and did not chase after him. Instead, they left with some unwillingness. There was no other way. If they really ate these celestials, the other heavenly divine guards would definitely not let it go. At that time, the Beast King would not be able to protect them. After all, the rules existed. If the Beast King attacked the heavenly divine guards, the peerless powerhouses of the celestials would not sit idly by. The reason was the same. On the Wan Beast's plane, a scenery appeared once again. A long white light rapidly moved forward, chasing after a silver light. Why are they so fast? Chu-Mu was very surprised. Could it be that the 3 9-star saint-level spirit beasts had already been killed by the celestials? If that was the case, then Chu-Mu could consider it. There was no need to continue running, because it was impossible to escape. It was better to directly use the Sword Sect Spirit Seal and summon that peerless powerhouse to kill all the celestials in an instant. This group of heavenly divine guards did not know that they had lingered on the edge of life and death several times. If not for Chu-Mu not being willing to waste this opportunity, if not for him wanting to use them as a whetstone to sharpen himself, they would have already been killed. All of them were killed, not a single one was left alive. Under the pursuit of the heavenly divine guards, the distance between them and Chu-Mu was once again shortened. 5,000 meters, 4,000 meters, 3,000 meters, 2,000 meters. Not long after, the distance between the two sides had shrunk to 1,000 meters, and it was still constantly shortening. 500 meters. In a little while, Chu-Mu would be caught by the heavenly divine guards. The vice-commander of the heavenly divine guards led people to chase after Chu-Mu while preparing a heavenly technique. As the distance between them shortened, the heavenly technique prepared by the vice-commander was gradually perfected. Shortly after, it was shot forward. The white light exploded under the impact, and a huge white palm appeared in the sky. It locked onto Chu-Mu and fiercely grabbed at him. It was like fishing for the moon in the ocean. This grab was simply impossible to dodge. Chu-Mu also planned to use the Sword Sect Spirit Seal. Suddenly, a fluctuation appeared in front of him. The air was like ripples spreading out. Chu-Mu's body directly entered it and disappeared. The white palm's grab missed. Chapter 1673. The moment the air ripples appeared, Chu-Mu felt a suction force instantly fill his body, as if an invisible hand had grabbed him. This power was formless, colorless, and soft. Chu-Mu didn't feel the slightest threat from it. Yet, after being sucked in, he couldn't move at all. However, his mind could still communicate with the Sword Sect spirit imprint. Only, Chu-Mu's heart shook and he didn't feel the slightest danger. Under the gaze of the Sky Race's divine guards, under the giant white hand, Chu-Mu's body seemed to dive into water, disappearing in front of their eyes all of a sudden. The white hand fiercely grabbed, but it grabbed empty air, causing a sonic boom. The deputy commander of the Divine Guards led his subordinates to the place where Chu Mu had disappeared. His face was gloomy. "Calculate," said the deputy commander. The vice commander said. He was originally about to catch up to the other party, but now, such an unforeseen event happened. This completely unexpected change made him incomparably angry. An evil flame burned in his heart, and his killing intent surged. The tone of his voice was even colder than usual. The Divine Guard immediately calculated. The soul power he had consumed before had been restored. Now it could be said that he was in peak condition. As he continued to calculate, the Celestial Guard's expression became more and more serious. In the end, cold sweat appeared on his forehead. This was the first time such a situation had occurred. Although the other Celestial Guards didn't know how to calculate, they understood the reason. This was caused by the difficulty of the calculation. As time passed, the Divine Guard's face became paler and paler. The sweat on his forehead became denser and denser. His breathing also began to become unstable. Suddenly, his body trembled. His pale face quickly turned red. He opened his mouth and spat out blood. His breathing became chaotic. He staggered and almost fell to the ground. Fortunately, there was a Divine Guard beside him to support him in time. The deputy commander of the Divine Guards immediately took out a pill and popped it into the Divine Guard's mouth. It quickly dissolved and swallowed down his stomach. The medicinal efficacy spread and immediately showed its effect, causing his breathing and aura to slightly recover. "What's the result?" asked the deputy commander. "It's hard to say." After the Celestial Divine Guard calmed down a little, he shook his head and smiled bitterly. "Maybe it was disrupted or maybe it was cut off. I can't figure it out. I only vaguely know that he seemed to have entered a place similar to a secret realm." Although this heavenly Divine Guard had dabbled in the art of divination, but after all, he had not reached a very profound level. If he could reach the level of the heavenly ancient Saint Emperor, he would be able to easily divine the whereabouts of Chu Mu. However, if he really had that kind of ability, there was no need for him to come out. Staying within Cloud Heaven City, he would be able to divine the exact location of Chu Mu and set up an inescapable net to capture Chu Mu in an instant. But then again, no matter how powerful the Tao of divination was, reaching the level of the heaven ancient Saint Emperor, he still couldn't divine his own affairs. In the end, he still ended up with his soul dissipating. Hearing the heavenly Divine Guard's words, the vice commander's face became even more gloomy. The anger in his heart could not be extinguished, but he still forcibly suppressed it, calmed himself down, and thought about it again. As a heavenly Divine Guard, especially as a vice commander, leading a group of people, he could not let his anger get the better of him and make the wrong decision. "Stay here and wait first. You should first recover from your injuries. After you recover, then slowly calculate. If you can calculate, then calculate. If you can't, then don't force yourself," the vice commander said. As a heavenly Divine Guard of the Tian clan, he had been in all kinds of environments. The current environment was nothing at all. As for the divination, if he couldn't calculate, it meant that the other party was still in the secret realm and other places. If he could calculate, it meant that the other party had left, and they could continue to chase after him. Even if he entered the territory of the human clan, they could still chase after him. "What is this place?" Chu Mu quickly looked around, somewhat bewildered. He himself did not understand what was going on. He was being chased by the Tian clan people, constantly fleeing. The Tian clan people used a powerful heaven technique to capture him. At that time, he also planned to use the Sword Sect Spirit Seal, but a spatial ripple and suction force suddenly appeared in front of him, causing him to enter this place. However, there was at least one benefit, and that was that he had escaped the pursuit of the Tian clan people. He did not even need to spread out his spiritual energy. Chu Mu's eyes could clearly see this place. It looked like he had entered a room that was not very big or small. The floor was black, the walls were black, and it was filled with the vicissitudes of time. It emitted traces of an icy aura. That aura was extremely pure. After studying for a while, Chu Mu still could not figure out where this place was and why he had appeared here. His spiritual energy spread out, intending to penetrate the floor and walls, but he found that it was blocked. The materials of the floor and walls were somewhat special and could block the probing of spiritual energy. At this moment, an unforeseen event occurred. Chu Mu could keenly feel that the surrounding aura was rapidly becoming denser. That aura was extremely pure, and Chu Mu was sure that this was the first time he had felt such a pure aura. This was not the origin chi of heaven and earth, nor was it a type of energy that he knew of. Instead, it was a type of energy that he had never felt before. It was very unfamiliar. This unfamiliar energy, when Chu Mu carefully sensed it, he discovered that he could actually absorb it. It was like spirit energy, directly absorbing it to improve his divine wasteland sword essence. To be cautious, Chu Mu carefully sensed it again. He did not sense any danger, nor could he find any way to leave. In other words, he was at his wits' end. He tried to absorb some more pure energy into his body and quickly transformed it into divine wasteland sword essence. There were no impurities, nor were there any side effects. The pure aura became denser and denser, spreading out in all directions, forming wisps of mist that carried a faint golden-red color. Chu Mu simply kept the heavenly puppet and sat down cross-legged to absorb it. If there was anything wrong, he would stop absorbing it. A large amount of pure aura was attracted and rushed towards Chu Mu. It entered Chu Mu's body and rapidly transformed into divine wasteland sword essence. The quantity of divine wasteland sword essence continued to increase, and its quality was not affected at all. Not only was the aura pure, it was also dense. It appeared continuously and rushed towards Chu Mu, where Chu Mu continuously absorbed it. As he refined it, Chu Mu's cultivation base began to increase rapidly. With his current second sky of everlasting realm cultivation base and his dantian that was different from ordinary cultivators, it would take him at least 10 to 20 years to reach the third sky of everlasting realm. However, from the current situation, Chu Mu seemed to have obtained another opportunity, an opportunity to increase his cultivation base rapidly. As he absorbed the pure aura, Chu Mu did not pay attention to the time. He only felt that his divine wasteland sword essence had finally risen from the early second sky of everlasting realm to the middle second sky of everlasting realm. The pure aura was still surging out continuously. Chu Mu did not feel any abnormality or threat, so he did not stop and continued to absorb it. Although it was sudden and puzzling, it was a rare opportunity, and he could not let it go. Once his cultivation base successfully broke through and rose another level, he would be able to fight to his heart's content even if he was facing an ordinary 7-star saint. Of course, it would be even better if he continued to raise his cultivation base until he reached the high realm of everlasting realm. In the outside world, the heavenly god guards waited patiently while Chu Mu enjoyed the rapid increase in his cultivation base. In the blink of an eye, another 10 days passed. To a saint-level expert, a dozen or so days was nothing. They could close their eyes and open them again, and it would pass. However, for Chu Mu, these 10 days were very important. His cultivation base continued to rise from the early second sky of everlasting realm to the late second sky of everlasting realm. The increase in his cultivation base naturally increased Chu Mu's strength. However, this kind of small increase in strength was not that obvious. Only a large increase in strength would be obvious. After 10 days, his cultivation base had broken through 2 small levels. Chu Mu still did not feel any abnormalities. The pure aura was still flowing out continuously, and the speed at which it appeared had increased by several times. Chu Mu did not have time to absorb it. The entire room was filled with golden-red aura, and it became denser. It was like a cloud, and Chu Mu's body was shrouded in it. After a few more days, Chu Mu's body trembled and he quickly stabilized. His cultivation base had increased by another small level. This kind of rapid increase in strength, without any side effects, was the same as when he used the spiritual pool when he was in the nirvana realm. However, it was better than the spiritual pool because it was only suitable for the nirvana realm. It had no effect on the everlasting realm, the peak second sky of everlasting realm. Next was the third sky of everlasting realm. Breaking through from the peak to the next sky was more difficult than breaking through from the early sky to the peak. It required more energy because the difference between the two heavens was not something that could be compared to the difference between small levels. The golden red aura continued to be absorbed and turned into divine desolate sword essence. It accumulated in his body, and it was like a long river that flowed endlessly through his meridians. After accumulating to a certain extent, Chu Mu began to break through the bottleneck. With the support of the endless energy, breaking through the bottleneck was not as difficult as expected. Of course, this was also due to Chu Mu's powerful primordial spirit and cultivation base. With a pop, Chu Mu felt his body tremble as a powerful energy surged through his body. His cultivation base had successfully broken through from the early second sky of everlasting realm to the early third sky of everlasting realm. An even more powerful divine desolate sword energy flowed through his body. The feeling of the energy becoming even more powerful made Chu Mu intoxicated. However, he did not stop absorbing. His cultivation had just broken through and he needed to consolidate it. After absorbing for a period of time, when his cultivation was consolidated, Chu Mu realized that he could no longer absorb pure energy. When he opened his eyes, the surrounding golden red aura had disappeared. Chapter 1674. That's it. Chu Mu stopped cultivating, a little surprised. Why did it disappear after his cultivation breakthrough? While thinking, Chu Mu only felt that he was caught, unable to move, and instantly spun. When he woke up again, he was no longer in the room, but in a valley. In front of him was a behemoth, like a hill. Although the aura it emitted was not strong, it made Chu Mu's heart tremble, as if there was an electric current rushing through his limbs and bones. A sense of trembling emerged from the depths of his blood and soul. This was an unavoidable feeling, a kind of gap in the level of life. Human, don't be afraid. A vigorous and vigorous voice sounded, like rolling thunder, into Chu Mu's ears. Your Excellency is? Chu Mu was not afraid. The trembling before was just a natural reaction brought about by the gap in the level of life. I am the Beast King, Tianlun. The huge hill-like figure moved, revealing a head. It looked like a tiger, a leopard, and a lion. In short, it looked like many spirit beasts, but it had a unique charm. A pair of huge eyes flashed with the light of wisdom. Beast King. Chu Mu's heart trembled slightly. The status of the Beast King among spirit beasts was similar to the status of the peerless experts among the human race. Their status was similar, and their strength was the same. In other words, the Beast King was equal to the peerless experts, but the Beast King of spirit beasts, under normal circumstances, was more powerful than the peerless experts. Speaking of which, spirit beasts had a natural advantage, a strong physique, a huge body, and more powerful strength, far surpassing that of other races. The flaw was very obvious, and that was wisdom. The wisdom of spirit beasts was generally not high. Even if they had wisdom not inferior to that of the human race, their minds were relatively simple, and their thinking was often more direct. They rarely beat around the bush, not to mention the smart people of the human race, who could come up with a lot of deceptive schemes. Spirit beasts advocated more straightforwardness, and won by force. Therefore, although saint-level spirit beasts were stronger than humans of the same level, they might not necessarily be able to kill their opponents in battle. They might even be killed by their opponent. However, beast kings were different. Beast kings were stronger than holy-level beasts, not only in terms of strength, but also in terms of intelligence. Even though holy level beasts had different temperaments and beast kings had different temperaments, beast kings were usually more rational. Their intelligence was more similar to that of humans, or even surpassing that of holy level beasts. Every beast king had lived for a very long time, at least tens of thousands of years. It was enough time for them to learn and improve, and use their wisdom more rationally. An incomparably powerful physique, an incomparably powerful strength contained within its body, and an incomparably wise wisdom. Even the peerless experts of the Tian clan were not willing to provoke such a beast king. "Your Excellency, Beast King, was that you?" Chumu's heart stirred as he asked. "Human, how do you feel? Your cultivation base has risen by 1 level." The Skywheel Beast King asked. As expected, everything made sense now. He was being chased by the Tian clan, but he entered a room and even absorbed a lot of pure energy to raise his cultivation base by 1 level. All of this was done by the Skywheel Beast King. "Your Excellency Beast King, may I ask what you need me to do?" Chumu asked. Perhaps Chumu's strength was worlds apart from the Beast King's, but some things could not be done with just strength. Chumu did not think that the Beast King would be so kind as to give him benefits for no reason. Therefore, the Skywheel Beast King must have a request. That was why he saved him and gave him benefits at the same time. "It's easy to talk to smart people," the Skywheel Beast King said. "Human, I have something that I need your help with. Just consider it an advance payment. After it's done, I can let you enter that place again to continue cultivating." When Chumu heard this, he was not overjoyed. Instead, he frowned. He had already raised his cultivation base by 1 level in just 20 days. In other words, Chumu used 20 days to complete what would have taken him 20 years to cultivate. The benefits were huge. This was just an advance payment. After it was done, there would be more rewards. It would not be any worse than before. Such a large reward meant that the task he had to do was also very difficult. Chumu wasn't confident. "It's just that with my strength, I can't enter that place. I have to be a mid-level martial saint or below. But there's something I need inside." The Skywheel Beast King saw the worry in Chumu's heart and said slowly, "Don't worry. With the strength you've shown, although it's difficult, it can be done." When Chumu heard this, he heaved a sigh of relief. A place that restricted one's cultivation base to enter. This meant that there was danger, but it should not be too great. With his cultivation base and strength, he should be able to fight it. Refuse? That was impossible unless Chumu was willing to use the Sword Sect spirit imprint. However, this Beast King didn't have any ill intentions towards him. This was equivalent to a trade that could give him an increase in strength, so why not? "Your Excellency, please enlighten me," Chumu said. This meant that he had agreed to the deal. "You have to enter the 100 Beasts Hall. Enter the last hall and bring me the only ball. Then, the deal is complete. I will pay the rest of the reward," the Skywheel Beast King said. Both of them were not wishy-washy people. Once they agreed, the Skywheel Beast King immediately opened the passage to the 100 Beasts Hall. The dark and deep passage spun as if it led to an unknown place. Chumu took a deep breath and stepped forward, quickly walking into the passage. To be honest, if the Skywheel Beast King wanted to harm him, there was no need for him to play so many tricks. With his strength, he could easily kill him. The passage seemed endless, but it was actually very short. In less than 3 breaths, Chumu walked out of the passage and entered a hall. The hall was very tall, at least 1,000 meters high. It was also very wide. It was like a hall that belonged to a giant. Chumu felt very small in it. There were countless murals on the walls of the hall. They were all murals of spirit beasts. Many of the spirit beasts looked very lifelike, as if they were about to come to life. Other than that, the hall was empty. Chumu could not find anything else. "The last hall," Chumu muttered. "This should be the first hall, not the last. Is there a way to go to the last hall?" He looked carefully. Other than the murals of the 100 beasts, he did not see anything else. Suddenly, one of the spirit beasts on the wall lit up. It let out a roar and jumped out of the murals. It turned into a huge black tiger. The moment the black tiger appeared, it roared at Chu Mu. The roar echoed in the hall. It was very powerful. The aura that the black tiger exuded was at the peak of the 1-star martial saint level. The peak of the 1-star martial saint level was too weak. Immediately there was another roar. More spirit beasts on the murals came to life and jumped out of the murals. One after another, there were more than 100 of them. They filled the hall. There was a huge black tiger, a red unicorn, a gray ape, and a silver goshawk flying in the sky. 101-star martial saints surrounded Chu Mu. Each of the spirit beasts was bigger than Chu Mu. It looked like Chu Mu was a lamb that had entered a herd of ferocious beasts. These guys were spirit beasts that were stronger than ferocious beasts. However, Chu Mu was not a lamb. There was no need to say anything. The battle began. Chu Mu fought against 100 alone. The blazing brilliance spiritual sword appeared. He slashed it out. The spirit beasts in front of him could not dodge at all. They were hit by the sword light. Under Chu Mu's sword, they let out a sad cry and instantly collapsed. They turned into light spots and flew to the wall, turning back into the murals. Even if there were 1,000 spirit beasts, as long as they were 1-star martial saints, they would not be a match for Chu Mu. They could be killed easily. However, the speed of the sword was so fast that the spirit beasts could not react. They did not even have time to attack. They collapsed under Chu Mu's sword. They turned into light spots and turned back into the murals. A door appeared in front of Chu Mu. Chu Mu finally understood. The door would appear if he killed the spirit beasts that appeared on the murals. He could then enter the next palace hall through the door. Walking through the door, Chu Mu indeed appeared in the new palace. Compared to the first palace, there didn't seem to be much of a difference. However, Chu Mu keenly discovered that the spirit beasts in the murals on the walls were slightly different from the ones in the first palace. The roars sounded again. The murals lit up one by one and turned into spirit beasts that jumped out. There was a total of 50 spirit beasts. The aura that each spirit beast emitted was at the peak of 2-star martial saint. Compared to the first palace hall, the number of spirit beasts in the second palace hall was less than half. However, they were more powerful. They were more powerful than the 100 spirit beasts from before. However, to Chu Mu, whether it was 100 spirit beasts at the peak of 1-star martial saints or 50 spirit beasts at the peak of 2-star martial saints, they were no match for him. With a spirit sword in hand, Chu Mu did not wait for the spirit beasts to attack. He drew his sword. The sword light flashed and a white sword chi streaked across the sky. It was like a white line that connected the sky and the water. It did not have a starting point or an ending point. However, it circled around Chu Mu. From a visual point of view, it looked like a straight white line, but in reality, it was actually a circle, creating a false sense of sight. One sword. Just one sword. No matter if it was on the ground or in the air, no matter if it was tall or short, none of the spirit beasts could escape. They were all hit and slashed. Even if it was just an ordinary sword attack, it was not something that these spirit beasts at the peak of 2-star martial saints could withstand. Under Chu Mu's sword, they turned into ashes. Chapter 1675. On the Plain of Beasts, the Celestial Clan's Celestial Divine Guards were still waiting. The Celestial Divine Guard in charge of divination had already recovered and was trying to divine again. However, he was still blocked and had to temporarily give up on the divination to avoid being injured again. Since they couldn't divine, they could only wait. However, more than 20 days had passed and there was still no news. The Celestial Divine Guard's faces were very ugly. It was just a human who was nothing in their eyes. He was just a mere 2-star martial saint. Not only did he escape from their pursuit, but he also made them wait here for more than 20 days with no way out. Disgrace. This was simply a disgrace to the Celestial Divine Guards. The third palace of the 100 Beasts Palace was about the same size as the first and second palace. There were also murals on the wall. The spiritual beasts that appeared were all peak 3-star martial saints. There were a total of 25 of them. 25 3-star sacred rank spirit beasts were definitely much stronger than 52-star sacred rank spirit beasts. However, in front of Chu Mu's sword, they still couldn't put up any resistance. In fact, they didn't even have the time to attack before they all died under Chu Mu's sword. In the fourth palace there were 12 spiritual beasts. Every one of them was a peak 4-star martial saint. 4-star martial saints were already mid-level martial saints. The difference between them and low-level martial saints was that their reactions were faster and their intelligence was higher. The moment these peak 4-star martial saints appeared, they immediately attacked Chu Mu. 12 different attacks bombarded him from all directions. With a sword in hand, Chu Mu wasn't afraid at all. Peak 4-star martial saints were indeed not weak, especially when there were 12 of them. However, to Chu Mu it was still not enough. One had to know that under normal circumstances, the difference between each star level was very big. Originally, Chu Mu could easily kill all 12 spiritual beasts, even if they attacked first. However, in the end, Chu Mu only killed 11 spiritual beasts easily and left one alive. This was an ape about 10 meters tall. This ape was different from the colossal arm ape that Chu Mu fought before. However, it was also completely black, but the hair on its head stood up. It looked very unique. This ape's body looked very strong and well-proportioned, unlike the colossal arm ape. It was just that its arms were the most special. The reason why Chu Mu kept this ape was because this ape was similar to the colossal arm ape in that it used its physique to fight. Spirit beasts basically had a strong physique, and they also had powerful energy in their bodies. However, some spirit beasts didn't have any energy in their bodies. They only had a strong physique. They were very strong, ridiculously strong. This kind of spirit beast's close combat strength was very terrifying. They could often fight against people of a higher level. This ape was even stronger than the giant armed ape. Chu Mu planned to use it to refine his saint body. Putting away the Raging Brilliance spiritual sword, Chu Mu took out the 5 elements spirit cleansing dew. After consuming it, he fought with the ape with his fist. The gap between Chu Mu's saint body and the other party was very obvious. In this kind of head-on battle, he was suddenly blown away and injured. However, with the 5 elements spirit cleansing dew, coupled with the fact that his self-healing ability had reached the 4th level saint body, he quickly recovered and strengthened. Yes, the 4th level saint body was already different from the 3rd level saint body. It had the ability that the 3rd level saint body didn't have, powerful self-healing. Chu Mu himself, because of the Nirvana realm's tribulation, integrated with the vitality of the wood aspect's origin, he had a very strong self-healing ability. After breaking through to the 4th level saint body, he had obtained a powerful self-healing ability. The two merged with each other, causing the self-healing ability to be doubled. If it took 10 breaths of time to heal an injury, it now only took 5 breaths of time. Although the difference between 10 breaths and 5 breaths was only 5 breaths of time, it was very long for an expert in battle. From the early 3rd level saint body to the early 4th level saint body, Chu Mu consumed 10,000 kilograms of 5 elements spirit cleansing dew. To refine from the early 4th level saint body to the early 5th level, Chu Mu didn't know how much 5 elements spirit cleansing dew he would need to consume. However, under his perception, he felt that it should be around 100,000 kilograms. In other words, the 150,000 kilograms of 5 elements spirit cleansing dew he brought out from the Divine Mountain's secret realm could only refine his body from the early 3rd level saint body to the early 5th level saint body. There was still about 40,000 kilograms left. The effect of 40,000 kilograms of 5 elements spirit cleansing dew on the 5th level saint body was further weakened. Maybe he would need 1,000,000 kilograms of 5 elements spirit cleansing dew to refine his 5th level saint body to the 6th level. After reaching the 6th level, the 5 elements spirit cleansing dew would lose its effect. However, that should be a long time in the future. At present, there was no need to think about it. He only needed to fight and refine his saint body. 2 figures, one big and one small, were constantly fighting inside the palace. Chu Mu's saint body was injured again and again. Again and again, it healed itself and strengthened itself. The 5 elements spirit cleansing dew was also constantly consumed. The strong pressure and violent collisions brought about the improvement of the saint body's strength. The early 4th level saint body broke through to the intermediate 4th level. The spirit beasts that appeared in the murals were not real spirit beasts with flesh and blood. They were spirit beasts composed of a kind of power. However, they were created based on real existing spirit beasts. Therefore, they had all kinds of abilities of those spirit beasts. Moreover, they also had an ability that real spirit beasts didn't have: unlimited physical strength. Yes, the spirit beasts that appeared in the murals wouldn't have problems such as lack of power or physical exhaustion. Therefore, they could continue to fight. After a period of time, Chu Mu's saint body's strength was further enhanced, reaching the late 4th level. The fighting continued until Chu Mu's saint body reached the peak of the 4th level. At this point, he consumed 50,000 kilograms of 5 elements spirit cleansing dew. At this point, Chu Mu would no longer be injured in a head-on clash with the ape. At this level, Chu Mu didn't take the 5 elements spirit cleansing dew anymore. Because the ape couldn't bring him strong pressure, it couldn't promote the rapid absorption of the 5 elements spirit cleansing dew. Therefore, after familiarizing himself with his powerful saint body and observing and learning the opponent's way of exerting force, he perfected his Zhen Tian style. The ape's way of exerting force was more inclined to eruption. In a flash, the power would at least double. It should be known that its power was already very tyrannical. In a flash, the power would be even more incredible. Chu Mu also learned it. He slowly tried to integrate it into his Zhen Tian style. This way of exerting force, Chu Mu named it the explosive force technique, which meant the method of erupting power. Like the giant force technique, it became the way of exerting force that Chu Mu learned. However, it was a difficult problem to integrate the giant force technique and the explosive force technique into his earthquake energy. Chu Mu tried again and slowly found the way. Zhen Tian style. With a low roar, he exhaled and his power condensed in an instant and poured into his forearm. His right forearm swelled in an instant. A powerful force gathered in it and directly increased by 30%. Immediately, Chu Mu blasted out this punch and blasted it toward the ape. The ape also blasted out a punch and instantly erupted with power. At the moment when the 2 fists collided, Chu Mu used the explosive force technique and the earthquake energy. Under the eruption of power, the power was more tyrannical and the speed was faster. When the earthquake energy was activated, the power of the shock was even more terrifying. With a ping sound, they collided. Chu Mu and the ape instantly retreated. The ape's arm was trembling and so was Chu Mu. The power was too strong and the recoil was also very strong. If it wasn't for the fact that his sacred body had reached the peak of the 4th rank, he wouldn't have been able to withstand it. Even so, such a powerful punch couldn't be casually used. With a thought, Chu Mu once again took out the Blazing Glory spiritual sword. The purpose of his research and learning was ultimately to strengthen himself and his own sword principle. With the sword in hand, Chu Mu launched another attack. When his arm recovered, he once again launched the Zhen Tian style. No, in the case of using a sword, the Zhen Tian style could be called the Zhen Tian sword style. As soon as he displayed the Zhen Tian sword style, Chu Mu discovered something and his eyes lit up. With a bang, the Blazing Glory spiritual sword slashed on the ape's body. Not only did it repel the ape, but it also broke its tough fur. This attack was much more powerful than a fist attack. With one sword, the ape was injured. Of course, this was the result of Chu Mu using his physical strength. If he used his full strength, he would have killed the ape in a second. After his arm recovered, he once again displayed the Zhentian sword style. This time, Chu Mu switched to whipping. The sword body vibrated at an extremely high frequency. With the support of the giant strength technique and the explosive strength technique, its power was unbelievably strong. When it hit the ape's body, it made an extremely loud sound, as if 100-meter-long drum had been beaten. At the point of the whipping, circles of ripples spread out and impacted in all directions. Under this huge force, the ape's body flew backward and smashed into the wall. Half of its body collapsed. Chu Mu was slightly stunned. Such a sword was enough to whip a 5-star martial saint to death on the spot. Looking at the ape, a 4-star martial saint with a strong physique, at the peak of the 4-star martial saint level, it was whipped until its skin and flesh were torn open. It suffered serious injuries. This was enough to show the violence of this sword. Yes, violence. Chu Mu came up with the word violence to describe the Zhentian sword style. Although the Zhentian sword style could not be compared to the cloud-piercing sword style, the Dao cutter sword style, and so on, it was limited by power. The power of a 4-star martial saint body was not strong enough. Moreover, Chu Mu did not integrate sword strength into this sword, nor did he comprehend the relevant true meaning. Once he integrated sword strength and comprehended the relevant true meaning, the power of this sword would increase by tens or even hundreds of times. At that time, even a 6-star martial saint could be whipped to death by this sword. Compared to the Dao cutter sword style, which was a pure slashing sword style, the Zhentian sword style was really violent. Moreover, it currently had more room for improvement than the other sword styles. This was perhaps the unexpected gain that Chu Mu had gained from entering the 100 Beasts Palace. Chapter 1676. Somewhere in the Myriad Beasts plain, a gigantic spirit beast was crawling on the ground like a small hill. When it didn't move or even emit its aura, people would really think that it was a small hill. No, it was a spiritual beast, a powerful beast king, one of the rulers of the plains of Myriad Beasts, the Sky Wheel Beast King. The seemingly sleeping Sky Wheel Beast King was actually waiting for the human who had entered the 100 Beasts Hall, hoping that the human could complete his task. He didn't mind giving the human some benefit. In fact, Chu Mu wasn't the first person he had found to enter the 100 Beasts Hall. However, the people before him had all failed. The consequence of failure was death in the 100 Beasts Hall. The Sky Wheel Beast King had the strength of a peerless master. Unfortunately, he couldn't enter the 100 Beasts Hall. However, there was something he needed in the 100 Beasts Hall. He could only let someone else enter and help him retrieve what he wanted. As a trade, he naturally had to give some benefits. Ever since the human had entered the plains of Myriad Beasts, the Sky Wheel Beast King had noticed him. He had been secretly observing the human's battle with the 2 spiritual beasts and being chased by the Sky Clan's Sky God Guards. Especially when the human had been chased by the Sky Clan's Sky God Guards, he had been able to escape repeatedly. Without a certain level of strength, it was impossible. It was because of this that the Sky Wheel Beast King had his eyes on Chu Mu. He had chosen Chu Mu to rescue him from the Sky Clan's Sky God Guard's pursuit. He had also given Chu Mu some benefits to raise his cultivation before proposing a trade. Among the Beast Kings of the plains of Myriad Beasts, the Sky Wheel Beast King was the oldest and the one with the best temper. If it had been any other Beast King, they might have directly threatened Chu Mu with their lives. In the Sky Wheel Beast King's opinion, this human had a high chance of getting what he wanted. Unfortunately, although he was in charge of the 100 Beasts Hall, he couldn't directly see the situation inside. He could only vaguely sense Chu Mu's progress. As he continued to move forward, Chu Mu had already arrived at the 5th palace. In the 5th palace hall there was also a mural of 100 beasts. There were a total of 6 spiritual beasts on the mural, and each of them had the strength of a 5-star martial saint. A 5-star saint-level spirit beast was not weak, especially when there were 6 of them. Once they appeared, they immediately attacked Chu Mu. Chu Mu's strength was not something that a 5-star saint-level spirit beast could deal with, not even a 5-star saint-level spirit beast. However, Chu Mu did not immediately kill them. Instead, without using the divine wilderness sword origin, he used the power of his sacred body to fight. Yes, Chu Mu was using these 6 spirit beasts to perfect Zhen Tian's sword style. The power of Zhen Tian's swordsmanship was further enhanced after the integration of sword force. However, Chu Mu knew very well that the power of sword force could not be fully unleashed when used with the power of vibration. After all, the power of vibration was more of a skill than a kind of power. It was a skill related to the use of power. By using a unique skill to vibrate the power that one possessed, one would be able to unleash an even stronger power. The simplest way was naturally the power of the physique. It was very difficult to vibrate other powers, especially powers like sword force. After many attempts, Chu Mu finally succeeded in vibrating the sword force. However, it was only level 1 sword force. With the level 1 sword force vibrations, the power of Zhen Tian's swordsmanship was increased by 2 times. Although Chu Mu's strength was much stronger than a 5-star saint-level spirit beast, it did not mean that he could withstand the attack of a 5-star saint-level spirit beast. Therefore, Chu Mu constantly dodged the attacks of the 6 spirit beasts. As he dodged, he tried to vibrate the sword force again and again. Zhen Tian performed the swordsmanship again. The body of the sword vibrated violently and the level 2 sword force vibrated along with the vibrations of the sword. It combined with the earthquake force, giant strength technique, explosive strength technique, and other skills to become an even stronger power. It exploded the moment it hit a spirit beast. Chu Mu used the whipping method for this move. He realized that Zhen Tian's swordsmanship used the whipping method, which meant that he used the body of the sword to attack. The power that exploded was more violent than a slash. Of course, slashing had its advantages, and whipping had its advantages. To attack with whipping, the sword itself must be tough enough. With the level 2 sword force vibrations, the swordsmanship was even more powerful. With a bang, the body of a 5-star saint-level spirit beast exploded from the whipping. The part of the body that was hit by the sword directly exploded. The power of Zhen Tian's swordsmanship was further enhanced. However, Chu Mu was not satisfied with this. He continued to move around and dodge the spirit beast. After his arm recovered, he performed Zhen Tian's swordsmanship again. He performed 6 swordsmanship and whipped 6 5-star saint-level spirit beasts to explode. With the body of a 4-star saint-level spirit beast, Zhen Tian's swordsmanship was shockingly powerful without using the divine wilderness sword origin and the power of law. If he could integrate the level 9 sword force into it and comprehend the true meaning of tremor, the power would increase by many times. In the 6th hall, there were only 3 spirit beasts that appeared on the mural. However, these 3 spirit beasts all had the strength of a 6-star saint-level spirit beast. They were very powerful. Chu Mu fought 1 against 3 and still used the 3 6-star saint-level spirit beasts as an experiment to practice Zhen Tian's swordsmanship. Every time Zhen Tian's swordsmanship was performed, he needed to concentrate and gather his strength in an instant before releasing it. Therefore, it would put a considerable burden on his arm. Under such a burden, he could not use it again. Otherwise, it would cause damage to his arm. Of course, the burden would not last forever. It would disappear quickly. Chu Mu already knew the duration of the burden from his repeated attempts. It was very accurate. It was 60 breaths. This was a cycle. Once 60 breaths were up, the burden would disappear completely and he could perform Zhen Tian's swordsmanship again. A 6-star saint-level spirit beast was far stronger than a 5-star saint-level spirit beast. Therefore, Chu Mu could not simply dodge. After dodging, he would also counterattack. He treated it as practicing his swordsmanship and the vibrations of the sword force. When the time was up, he would perform Zhen Tian's swordsmanship. A 6-star Saint-level spirit beast's physique was far stronger than a 5-star Saint-level spirit beast's physique. Therefore, Zhen Tian's swordsmanship, which could kill a 5-star Saint-level spirit beast with a single strike, could only repel a 6-star Saint-level spirit beast. However, this gave Chu Mu a better opportunity to practice his swordsmanship. Although a 6-star Saint-level spirit beast was powerful, it was still not Chu Mu's match. After repeated attempts, Chu Mu finally succeeded in creating the vibration of the 3rd-level sword force. He integrated it into Zhen Tian's swordsmanship, causing the power of Zhen Tian's swordsmanship to increase further. With a single strike, not only could he repel a 6-star Saint-level spirit beast, but he could also cause minor injuries. The 4th-level sword force was successfully created, and the power of Zhen Tian's swordsmanship increased again. The minor injuries were aggravated. Unfortunately, Chu Mu seemed to have reached a bottleneck. He could not successfully create the 5th-level sword force. In this way, Chu Mu used 3 6-star Saint-level spirit beasts to practice Zhen Tian's swordsmanship a few more times. Only then did he perform the other swordsmanship and kill the 3 spirit beasts. There was only one spirit beast in the 7th palace. It was a 7-star Saint-level spirit beast. Chu Mu was excited. Without the heavenly puppet, he had never fought a 7-star Saint-level spirit beast to the death. This was his first time, and it was a 7-star Saint-level spirit beast at that. If Chu Mu's cultivation had not increased to the early stage of the 3rd sky of Aeon, he would not have been able to fight a 7-star Saint-level spirit beast. He would have had to use the Wheel of Soul splitting primordial spirit attack secret technique or equip the heavenly puppet with the heavenly wasteland. In reality, the heavenly wheel beast king felt that Chu Mu should be able to obtain the item it wanted through the 100 Beast Palace. It was in the heavenly puppet Chu Mu was using. According to its observations, the heavenly puppet desolate heavenly puppet had the strength of a peak 7-star saint rank. Under Chu Mu's control, its strength could exceed that and reach 8-star saint rank. The heavenly wheel beast king did not expect that Chu Mu would not use the heavenly puppet. He wanted to fight with his own strength. Facing this 7-star saint rank spirit beast, Chu Mu didn't dare to hold back. 2 swords appeared in his hands. Aside from not using any secret techniques, he used all of his strength to fight against this 7-star saint rank spirit beast. As soon as the fight started, Chu Mu discovered that this 7-star saint rank peak spirit beast gave him quite a bit of pressure. Not only was it quite a bit, Chu Mu had to fully concentrate and use all of his abilities in order to barely resist. When he was in the early stage of the 2nd sky of Aeon, he could kill a 6-star saint-level spirit beast. However, when he was in the 3rd sky of Aeon, he could not kill a 7-star saint-level spirit beast. The difference between a 6-star saint level and a 7-star saint level was huge. It was the difference between a mid-level saint level and a high-level saint level. After a fierce battle, Chu Mu used the sword of interception. The 2 swords immediately trapped the spirit beast. However, Chu Mu soon found a flaw in the sword of interception. It was too small. The spirit beast was huge. The sword of interception could only cover a few meters. It could only cover a small part of the spirit beast. Naturally, it could not be used effectively. Chu Mu had no choice but to retreat. He quickly equipped the heavenly puppet and controlled the heavenly puppet to fight with the spirit beast. Chu Mu had to be very careful when fighting with the spirit beast. His saint body could not withstand the attack of a 7-star saint-level spirit beast. If he was hit, he would be seriously injured and lose the ability to fight. However, it was different with the heavenly puppet. The heavenly puppet's defense was amazing. It could withstand the attack of a 7-star saint-level spirit beast. Even an 8-star saint-level spirit beast's attack could at most injure the heavenly puppet a little. After equipping the heavenly puppet, it was even more powerful. It had the ability to fight a 7-star saint-level spirit beast head-on. Under such circumstances, he was not in a hurry to kill the spirit beast. Instead, he used the spirit beast to practice his sword. He wanted to see if he could use the sword of Gentian while controlling the heavenly puppet. After all, although the heavenly puppet was much more powerful than his current saint body, it was still not his body. Although he could control it freely, there was still a huge gap between it and his body. Therefore, it was very difficult to use the sky-shaking sword style. Chapter 1677. The Heaven Wasteland heavenly puppet's material determined its own strength, and determined that its defense was extremely shocking. Even if it was hit by a peak 7-star saint-rank spirit beast, it would at most suffer a bit of damage, unable to pose any threat to Chu Mu who was inside. However, the heavenly puppet was a puppet after all and not a body of flesh and blood. Chu Mu could not use the great strength technique. Under such circumstances, Gentian's sword style could not be used. Even if he could not use Gentian's sword style, Chu Mu could still kill the peak 7-star martial saint spiritual beast. After an intense battle, the peak 7-star martial saint spiritual beast was finally killed by Chu Mu. There shouldn't be any more powerful spiritual beasts. Chu Mu thought to himself. This was already his greatest strength. If another peak 8-star martial saint spiritual beast appeared, he would not be a match for it. Fortunately, the 100-beast hall had a cultivation restriction. After entering, one's strength would not be restricted. Otherwise, Chu Mu would be helpless and could only die here. Thinking about it, even if he deliberately suppressed his cultivation, he would still be recognized and would not be able to enter. Otherwise, Chu Mu would not be needed. Once the peak 7-star martial saint spiritual beast died, a door appeared. Chu Mu armed himself with the heavenly puppet and walked in. Even if there were opponents, armed with the heavenly puppet, it would be better than entering with his own body. After entering, it was the 8th hall. It was not much different from the previous 7 halls. It also had murals of 100 beasts. In addition, in the center there was something like an altar. On top of it there was a huge white oval egg. Yes, it was a huge white egg that was 2 meters tall. Chu Mu could feel a trace of aura emanating from the huge egg. It was a strong life force. In other words, the huge egg was alive. It seemed to be the egg of a spiritual beast. Judging from the aura, the bloodline of this spiritual beast was extraordinary. Human, did you get it? The heavenly wheel beast king's voice suddenly sounded, startling Chu Mu. It couldn't enter, and it couldn't know the specifics. It could only sense Chu Mu's progress and where he was. At this moment, Sky Wheel Beast King sensed that Chu Mu had entered the 8th palace, which was why he asked. Found it, Chu Mu replied. With a thought, he put the white egg into his space ring. Then, a door appeared in front of Chu Mu. After stepping through the door, Chu Mu left the 100-beast hall. He appeared in front of the Sky Wheel Beast King and took out the white egg. Your Excellency Beast King, I'm glad I didn't fail you, Chu Mu said. Thank you, young friend. The Sky Wheel Beast King's tone was filled with joy. He even changed the way he addressed Yi Futian from human to young friend. Your Excellency Beast King is too polite. Chu Mu smiled. Although he was curious, Chu Mu did not ask. The Sky Wheel Beast King did not explain what kind of spirit beast the egg belonged to. According to our agreement, you can enter that place to cultivate again, the Sky Wheel Beast King said. Thank you, Your Excellency Beast King, Chu Mu said. Then, Chu Mu entered the room again. This time, Chu Mu was completely at ease as he cultivated. The golden-red pure aura spread out. Chu Mu sat down cross-legged and absorbed it wholeheartedly. Until now, Chu Mu did not know what kind of power this was. However, he knew that this aura was closely related to the Sky Wheel Beast King. This was because he had felt the aura from the Sky Wheel Beast King before. The two were very similar. Under the continuous absorption, Chu Mu's divine wilderness sword essence began a new round of growth. Originally, when he reached the early third sky of the ancient era from the early second sky of the ancient era, although he had consolidated it, he still needed some time to completely master the increase in cultivation. Entering the 100-beast palace, using his sword again and again, especially in the final battle with the spirit beasts, allowed Chu Mu to constantly familiarize himself with his own strength until he grasped it. Now, when he cultivated and absorbed it again, there were no repercussions. As he continued to cultivate and absorb, the divine wilderness sword essence continued to increase. From the early third sky of the ancient era to the middle third sky of the ancient era, it continued to accumulate. The increase in cultivation between the third sky of the ancient era was slower than the second sky of the ancient era. Therefore, it took more time. 20 days later, Chu Mu's cultivation rose from the early third sky of the ancient era to the peak third sky of the ancient era. After that, he continued to consolidate his cultivation. The golden red aura was endless, and Chu Mu did not hesitate to absorb it. After the peak third sky of the ancient era, it was time to break through to the fourth sky of the ancient era. The third sky of the ancient era belonged to the lower level of the ancient era, while the fourth sky of the ancient era belonged to the middle level of the ancient era. It was not easy to break through from the lower level of the ancient era to the middle level of the ancient era. In order to break through to the fourth sky of the ancient era, there were strict requirements. Firstly, one needed a corresponding cultivation realm. The concept of cultivation realm was very mysterious and difficult to explain clearly. Simply put, it was the understanding of the Tao of cultivation. It felt like a person's understanding of the same matter. When they were young, middle-aged, and old, their understanding of the same matter would change greatly at every stage. It was as if they were closer to the essence of the matter. Secondly, one had to have a corresponding level of primordial spirit. It had to be at least a second-level primordial spirit. Thirdly, there must be enough accumulation, which is the accumulation of energy. None of the three requirements could be missing. Now Chu Mu had fulfilled all three requirements. Therefore, he started to break through to the fourth sky of the ancient era. His cultivation level had long surpassed the fourth heavenly layer of the Aeon realm. His primordial spirit had also surpassed the fourth heavenly layer of the Aeon realm. Under such circumstances, with sufficient energy, it wasn't difficult for him to break through. As he continued to absorb energy, it felt as if something had opened up. Suddenly, the divine wilderness sword essence in his body surged. This was a completely different feeling that made Chu Mu intoxicated. Early fourth sky of the ancient era. The difference between the middle level of the ancient era and the lower level of the ancient era was indeed different. Not only did the quantity of the sword essence increase, but the quality was also purer. Apart from that, Chu Mu also knew that the recovery speed of the sword essence was very obvious. This should be the ability of the middle level of the ancient era. It was something that the lower level of the ancient era did not have. After absorbing another round of the golden red aura and stabilizing his cultivation base, the golden red aura disappeared. Although it was a pity, Chu Mu knew that the heavenly will beast king had stopped releasing the aura. It was already very good that he had been able to reach the fourth sky of the ancient era from the early third sky of the ancient era. If he had cultivated normally, he would not have been able to break through without 30 to 40 years. From the early second sky of the ancient era to the early third sky of the ancient era, and then from the early third sky of the ancient era to the early fourth sky of the ancient era, it was a leap of 2 heavens. It would take at least 50 to 60 years to break through, and that was under the condition that Chu Mu cultivated daily. This meant that Chu Mu had saved 60 years of cultivation time. He was ahead of many of his peers, and he was the first to reach the early fourth sky of the ancient era. This was the path of cultivation. Many times, one step at a time, one step at a time. Of course, there was always a good side to everything. Naturally, there would also be a bad side. For example, if Chu Mu was at the early fourth sky of the ancient era, he would not have been able to enter the 100-beast hall. If he could not enter, he would not have been able to obtain any fortuitous encounters. In any case, after reaching the early fourth sky of the ancient era, Chu Mu's strength had increased significantly. This was a good thing. If it was said that he could only fight against an ordinary peak 7-star saint before, then now, he could kill an ordinary peak 7-star saint. He could even fight against an ordinary 8-star saint to a certain extent. At this level, the desolate heavenly puppet's usefulness to Chu Mu was greatly reduced. Of course, the heavenly puppet still had its uses. It was something that Chu Mu could not replace. Little friend, are you going to the ancient heaven domain of the human race? Heavenly Wheel Beast King asked. Yes, Your Excellency Beast King. Chu Mu was grateful to Heavenly Wheel Beast King. Although it was a deal, it was not difficult for him to obtain the giant egg. In fact, he had gained quite a lot from the 100-beast hall. Heavenly Wheel Beast King had helped Chu Mu's cultivation level increase tremendously. From the early second sky of the ancient era to the early fourth sky of the ancient era, it was more meaningful than going from the early first sky of the ancient era to the peak third sky of the ancient era. Because of this, Chu Mu was grateful to Heavenly Wheel Beast King. However, Chu Mu also understood that this was a deal. He had put in the effort and received the reward. Therefore, he was grateful, but he did not shed tears of gratitude. In that case, I'll send you on your way, Heavenly Wheel Beast King said. Before Chu Mu could reply, he felt an irresistible force wrap around him. It was as though he was transported through time and space. The surroundings were filled with a myriad of colors. The time was extremely short. In just a flash, Chu Mu felt as if he had passed through a space-time tunnel and landed on the ground. He saw that there were people in front of him. Behind him was an endless plain. This was the border of the Wan Beast's plain. Based on what Heavenly Wheel Beast King had said, this should be the border between the ancient era domain and the Wan Beast's plain. Chu Mu was shocked by the Beast King's strength. If it were him, he would need at least 10 days to travel this distance. But it was shortened in an instant. The 120 Heavenly Divine Guards were still waiting in place. The Heavenly Divine Guard, who was proficient in calculation, started to calculate again. This time, he did not encounter any obstacles. On the contrary, it went smoothly. Not long after, the calculation was completed. However, his expression was not good. How was it? The deputy commander asked. There was no obstruction. I calculated it, but the other party has gone far away. He should have entered the ancient era domain, said the Heavenly Divine Guard. The Heavenly Divine Guard's expressions changed greatly. They were incomparably gloomy. Even if he has entered the ancient era domain, we must capture him, said the deputy commander, gnashing his teeth.